Thanks for joining today's episode. I'm with Justin Hanson here, and Justin, glad to have you on, man. He's from Stoughton, so this is sweet for all the local people that listen. The town that I live in Wisconsin, he's from the area as well. He's got a development project that he's doing here and actually doing a conversion of an old 1910s, 1920s building that we'll get into. And so this is going to be kind of cool because we got a lot of local people that listen. But we've also got a lot of people that kind of follow what I do, and they're either buying real estate already, or they're business people or whatever, and so they're just going to be interested in the project. And I think, we'll kind of end up going through it. At some point through here, we'll end up going through, the struggles, the ups and downs, and the challenges that Justin has had, kind of doing his first real estate development. So Justin, I appreciate you coming on, man. How's it going?
It's going well. I appreciate the opportunity, and I've gotten to follow you a little bit over the last couple of years and get to know you, and I appreciate that. It's always great to have the opportunity to learn from people like you who've had the success, and you kind of alluded to this being my first development project. Yeah. And it's been a very unique experience, and I have a lot of admiration for people like you that go through the struggles that it takes to get kind of from point A to point B to get these things done.
Appreciate it.
And I, as Justin alluded to, I'm a born and raised Norwegian Stoughton boy, and excited to be able to work on something in my hometown and to talk here with Justin and hopefully.
Well, I don't want to cut you off too, but I want to say thank you for getting me out to TPC up there, the new Madison.
I had to pull some strings for that one.
Yeah. The new Madison golf course up there, Steve Stricker's. I do. So you're a heck of a golfer.
I used to be.
I still think you're pretty good. Where's your handicap right now?
Oh, I don't even know right now. 4 or 5.
I think I only got this year. I've got maybe with the newborn and just the businesses and stuff. I think I've got 58 total holes in or something like that. And it's kind of an odd number because I went out and played like 2 here and 4 there.
Quit after a few one time.
No, I just literally. as much as I wanted to, I chuck a club if I get pissed. Yeah. I don't usually quit, but I'll chuck a club and go get it and then keep going. But no, I've just been so busy that it's just been hard. But
you're ahead of me. I got the stats for this year. How many rounds I played? 2 rounds.
2 rounds. I am ahead of you.
Yeah. So.
But you golfed.
So 2 rounds by myself. I'll clarify. A bunch of scrambles and work events, but by myself, 2 rounds this year.
But you golfed at a decently high level, didn't you, or something?
I did. I got down to a +2 handicap for a while. Played competitively, WSJ. Made a nice run.
What is WSJ?
Well, Wisconsin State Golf Association.
Okay, so gotcha. The WSGA. Gotcha.
WSGA, so I used to play in the state open, state match play, state amateur, stuff like that. Made a nice run. 1 year in the match play, knocked off a few UW Badger players. That's my claim to fame. And then priorities came into play with the wife and the kid, and had to sacrifice something.
Always happens. Did you golf in college?
I did not.
Didn't golf.
That was the plan, and then I kind of got close to college and realized I wanted to focus on the other college aspects.
Yep.
I didn't really want to be
school, right? A's and B's.
Schools, A's and B's, of course. I didn't really want to be locked in a golf mat and a net and in the winter 3 hours a night. So it was a good decision. Got back into it after college and picked it up.
And what'd you go to college for?
Business management.
All right, business management. Yep. Okay. How much of your degree, just out of curiosity, I go on tangents a lot, just out of curiosity, how much of your degree you think you use with what you're doing now? I mean, some people use a lot of stuff and some people use really little, none. So I'm just curious where you kind of fall on that spectrum. So
to be honest, in the college experience, I would say 98% of what I used from college was not learned in the classroom.
Yeah.
So for me, the college was kind of learning more about who I am, developing certain relationships, learning how to be a people person, learning how to develop those relationships with other people, right?
For sure.
So in the classroom, I think a lot of that came easy to me, and I don't know that I focused as hard as I probably should have. I mean, I got good grades.
Yeah.
But there were so many other aspects of college that added value to what I use now in my daily life outside of just the book work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I tell people that all the time too. For me, it was sports and learning how to be a leader and overcoming challenges, the work ethic, the adversity, being a multiple-time team captain, and then just some of the actual connections that I made in college, because there's actually a couple really, really successful guys out of that school, just doing a lot of different business things and whatnot. And so those connections have been huge. They've been guys that came and invested in our real estate deals.
So I know you were a really good college football player. How did that trend? How did that experience tailor who you are now?
So for me, it was just I really wanted to roll over everything that I'd learned. I didn't want all that to go to waste, and what I didn't want was to be the athlete the former athlete that he's 40, 50, 60 years old, and he's just talking about like the highlight of his life being when I scored the game winning in 2011. I scored the game winning touchdown. I've had a crazy game in the conference championship game, and I ended up scoring the game winning touchdown. And I didn't want that, like the stat lines of that game or that touchdown, to be like the only thing I was talking about when I was 30, 40, 50. I wanted that to be like one of the things and one story, but I didn't want it to be the story. And so that was what I was out of fear, almost scared of when I was about to graduate and done with playing college football. I'm like, what am I, like, how am I going to top this? Because it was awesome, right? Playing sports is awesome, and you're with some of your best friends and whatnot. And so for me, it was like, okay, how can I use everything that I learned in sports? Again, being a leader, having to show up for 5 a.m. workouts on a Friday morning after you've been out till 1 a.m. partying on a Thursday, right? Which happens sometimes. You guys, we roll into the bars and right into the workout sometimes. But like you learn a lot from that. You do. Like, and just the mindset of I'm going to show up, and no matter what, like showing up, you're beating a lot of people by just showing up. Yeah. And so I can't count how many times it's been. I used to be involved in direct sales, network marketing, much more than I am today, and I built a pretty good business in it. And I remember and it's where you want to recruit people, bring them in. People call them pyramid schemes, call it a pyramid scheme, whatever. I made $500,000 doing it, and I put it into apartments. So you can call it whatever you want. I made $500,000 doing it, put it into apartments. But I drag people to the meetings. Well, there's one meeting on a Wednesday night, and I tried to get. I had like 5 people committed. All of them backed out. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm committed. I already said I was going to be there. I'm going to show up. Yep. So I show up, and while there was a picture that was taken by somebody. I was in it, and the other person posted it, tagged me in it, said, "Had an awesome time tonight at this event of this company. Everyone should go check this company out." And a guy that I've been trying to recruit for like 2 years that follows me saw that picture, then reached out the next day and said, "Hey, I'm ready to go." Ends up signing up and goes on a streak of like, and I mean, that just in like, him and his team probably paid me, I don't know, $25,000 over the next like 6 months, right?
That's how life works. You got to show up to find the opportunities, right? They don't fall into your lap.
Right. So all from a picture where everyone, so again, if I didn't show up, like I initially committed just because no one else, the other people I invited didn't show up, like that probably wouldn't have happened, because maybe he still reached out anyway. So it's just the mindset of showing up. And so I learned that from college sports, right? And I've applied that just for that story right there, but countless times I've applied that. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the most politically correct. I'm not, whatever it might be, but I will show up every time because I got the energy to do it. And sports taught me that.
That's a great mentality.
Yeah. So sports is a great thing. So what brought you to the point of, business management degree? Have you always had an interest in real estate?
No. So that's kind of an interesting story. My background is, so I grew up in a family business, right? So my father started a Radio Shack back in the 90s, late 90s here in Stoughton.
That's when Radio Shack was bumping.
Booming. They had more stores per square mile than McDonald's at that point.
I remember going through Radio Shacks all the time.
That was a heyday.
In the malls and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I grew up in the back room here in Stoughton on Jackson
Radio
Street.
Shacks and Blockbusters.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in the back room of the Radio Shack. I've always been had a high admiration for my father. So I was always the kid, when he was at work, I would be at work with him. So I had my own little room set up back there, and I painted the bathroom with dinosaurs when I was young, and I was hanging out in the stock room. So I grew up in that business, and I worked there when I was really young. So I always had a passion watching my dad, and he, really who I am today is reminiscent of my father. All the values that I have, all the drive that I have, everything that I do was instilled upon me by my dad. And so for me, it was a no-brainer to go into business management. I loved what he did. I loved the mentality he had. I wanted to be just like him. So that's how I handled college. That's why really the only thing I was ever interested in was managing my own business, leading people, and affecting others' lives, stuff like that. And so after college, I got more into the business, more into a leadership role, continued to take over. I'll get into this part of the story. I ended up purchasing the majority of the company from my father on a plan to purchase the entire company. This was up until 2 years ago, happened over a few-year span. And then our Radio Shack evolved into a US Cellular agent in the early 2000s, back when they were Cell One of the original agents. And so we started a new store in Oregon and Evansville in the mid-2007, 2008 range. As I progressed into the business, we really started to take off up until a couple of years ago, and I was reaching out to my corporate reps to say, how do I get more stores, right? I wanted to grow. I kind of have that mentality of, I think like you, what's next? What's the next challenge? Right. What do I do next, right? And
you weren't
so,
satisfied doing what you were doing. You were you were thirsty for that.
You just got to keep doing something. And so they came back. I knew much of the Wisconsin guard was aging out. Those original agents were turning 60.
The Wisconsin guard of like that industry.
Yeah. So there was, there's 22 agents in Wisconsin. I knew a bunch of them were starting to age out, and there could be stores available. So I went to the corporate side and said, how do I get my name on the list to get these stores? And they say, you have to make a lead performing agent. It's a program they have, meet a bunch of criteria. It's very difficult for a tenured agent like us to meet that. So much is based on new line quotas. So, me and another gentleman that I hired really focused on businesses and business acquisitions, right? Especially in our Dane County area.
Now, this is the same type of business, or we're talking about different businesses now at this
Same
point?
business, right?
Okay,
so on the US Cellular side, how do I get more lines, right?
Got it.
Versus the people that walk in the door, how do I go out and build my new line numbers?
Mm-hmm.
So I focused on businesses, and I became one of the highest business rep sales of anybody in Wisconsin, the Southern Wisconsin market, corporate or agency. And we ended up making a lead performing agent. So, and I'm going to spare you the rest of, I'll make this next story short. It's probably for a different style podcast. But I thought, I did really well. It was a contract year. And
you thought you were in?
Thought I was in, right? And so it's also a contract year. So I'm like, well, I just proved our worth here in the contract year. One of the highest performing agents in all of Wisconsin. Sure enough, we get the call from the corporate rep. And it's a 10-second call, and basically tells us you're not being renewed as an agent. You're being terminated.
So it went the opposite way.
It went the opposite way.
Yeah.
So I'll spare the rest. It turned into a 10-month kind of legal back and forth, which was another fun challenge that I really enjoyed. My wife didn't enjoy it so much, but I had fun doing it. But at that point in my life, and this was all about 2.5 years ago, all of a sudden I had a newborn daughter at home at the time. And I'm sitting there, well, I just invested, my life and our family invested so much into this company, and now it's going to be just taken away and handed to somebody else. So,
So it's not like they were even getting rid of these businesses. It was just they decided to go a different route, and then they didn't renew you at all?
Yeah, essentially their business model was to consolidate agencies into a larger agent owning more stores, right?
And you wanted that, but they didn't want to give you that. They were going to give that to someone else, basically.
In essence, yeah, because they already had their big agencies in a sense kind of in line.
So the goalposts also kind of shifted for you, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Right? They kind of shifted the goalposts on you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an unfortunate situation. And so I'm sitting there, newborn child at home. I had my life planned out, right? And it's kind of a gut punch. And then you're sitting there thinking, well, now I've got to survive. And I got to pay the mortgage, right?
Yep.
I'm going to lose my business here in the next 6 months to a year. I've got mortgage to pay, I got bills to pay, a newborn kid. I've done this my whole life. What do I do next? Type of thing. So it's your back's against the wall. I weirdly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot of stress.
For sure.
And so this is kind of how my real estate started, right? So right away, I'm thinking, what do I have to do next? And so I already had a business in my mind that I was looking to start. And I had a business plan.
Hold on, I want to back up to one thing. You said your back was against the wall and you loved it. How do you love that? Because a lot of people might be listening like, wait a minute, how did you just skip over? How do you love that?
I think I thrive when, you're kind of beaten down in a sense, and you have no choice but to overcome a hurdle.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, after losing the business, I had a couple of options. You can pity yourself and feel sorry for yourself, or you can say, what's my next challenge? How do I get out of this?
Yeah.
I have goals in life that I set that shouldn't change those goals. I just have to readjust the path to get there.
Path changes.
So what do I have to do?
Got it. And I love that. I love how you said that. I love it when my back's against the wall. Yeah. I mean, I think anyone that's been successful in whatever it is at some point, they're at probably multiple points. Yeah. Multiple points for sure. Your back's against the wall for sure.
Yeah. So that's it. I think some people enjoy that feeling
for sure.
And the stress that comes along with that. There's a healthy fear, right? So the fear and the stress, if you use it correctly, is a great tool, great resource for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then I was looking to start another business, had a business plan ready to go, had a couple of partners, investors lined up to potentially start this. I just needed to find a building. So I was poking around downtown.
So this is where your real estate journey.
This is where it started. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was poking around downtown a little bit. I couldn't find the opportunity that was going to fit what I wanted to do. At the same time, big life changes.
What'd you first? So when you first, because my guess is, obviously I know kind of about the project that we're going to get into here a little bit, but my guess is like that project is not necessarily what you're initially looking for. Were you initially looking for something that's already stabilized, something that was already new, a value add deal, or what were you looking for?
Yeah. So what I was really looking for, I was going to start I had a new business model I was going to start, right? and I wanted a 3,000, 2,000 square foot, one of those classic buildings on downtown Main Street.
Yeah.
With an apartment above to help with the cash flow,
Yeah.
stabilize the potential.
Yeah, if you're not from Wisconsin or like a Midwest town or like a suburb, and you've always lived in a city or you lived out in the middle of nowhere, whatever. Some of these towns in Wisconsin, they might have 2,000 to 20,000 people in them, and the downtowns are, they're all 2 to 4 story buildings, brick. They were built in the, late 1800s, early 1900s, and over the years people have converted them and whatnot. And something popular in Stoughton where we live is there's been slowly people have been kind of buying them and picking them up and retrofitting them and cleaning them up, making them into restaurants down below and apartments up top. And then even again though, like, a lot of people have done over the last 30 years. If there's already been stuff that's been converted to apartments 20, 30, 40 years ago, and we've talked about this, there's a lot of landlords that just let them slide and get into bad. Yeah. But okay, anyway, I just want to give a little bit of a context for some people that might not be from like a town like Stoughton or haven't necessarily seen that before.
We'll probably get a little more into what we think about the downtown.
And a lot of times these downtowns have like a river that go through them because back in the day they needed some type of river, water source, whatever, railroad tracks, and so it's an older school type downtown. And actually, the cool thing about Stoughton's downtown is it's awesome. It's flourishing. All the events they do, Stoughton does a great job. There's so many of these towns that are like just dying, right? Yep. But Stoughton does a great job of Set Mai, and which I feel like I say Set Mai wrong all the time. It's got a huge Norwegian influence.
Can you spell it?
No. So you should see it. You should see in the text chats around the Set Mai time. Like you should see my spelling of Set Mai. People know what I'm talking about but it's off the hook. It's not anywhere close. But they got that. I mean, just a couple weeks ago with Halloween, they had the business Halloween thing where all the businesses come out and it's like the streets are packed on. They do a great job decorating during Christmas, and they've got the American flag and the Norwegian flag, all flying out there, and they just do a great job. It's not a typical downtown of a town that size is 2,000 to 20,000 people. It's kind of like vacant. It's vibrant. And there's a lot going on down there.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so okay. So you your back was against the wall. You knew you wanted to go into real estate.
Yeah.
You were initially looking for 3,000 to 5,000 square feet.
Yes, for my first floor. Then I wanted apartments above it to help stabilize a startup business. For example.
Okay, so you're going to start up a business.
Correct.
Okay, got it. And then just do apartments up top.
That was option one.
Got it. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I started looking for.
Did you have multiple options right away, or
I did?
Okay.
So right away, when your back's against the wall, I'm searching out all types of opportunities. Right. I've a lot of business customers, a lot of clients, and then relationships that I built over the years, where I'm poking at them, for other opportunities, whether that be in a W-2 job or other opportunities that they may have, and that's kind of part of the story. And so my option one is I just got excited because I wanted to run a business. Mm-hmm. And looking for potential opportunities downtown, having more conversations with my wife, wonderful wife. I love my wife to death, and newborn child at home, and it was a good time to settle down, to try to slow that motor down a little bit and recalibrate. Right, I didn't have to do everything on day one of switching my life. Right, so I took a step back and I started to explore some other opportunities. Right, and that's how I ended up where I am now. Yep. So for those out there, right now I've got into finance and now into commercial lending. Yep. Which is a wonderful career. Every day is challenging, right? And it helps me learn. One of the great things about of finance and commercial lending is the opportunity for me to learn more, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great education. Yeah. And that certainly helps with any future endeavors that I'm looking at now. So to kind of tie up how I got onto this building is I was looking downtown, right, and poking around, and I couldn't find really an opportunity I was looking for. And I'm on Wisconsin parcel maps and Access Dane, and I pull up this building. And it's the building that I probably haven't even remembered seeing in 30 years because it's just kind of sitting there and not.
Yeah, when you're trying to tell me which one, I'm like, I know the street, but I can't picture the building. And then I drove by, I'm like, oh, it's that building. And like, I knew it once I saw it.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, it's worth a call, right?
Jake, if you can maybe just bring up I don't know, the rendering the rendering's kind of, is this being shared right now? So you can kind of see some pictures on the screen. There's some renderings. Just kind of click through a few of them. We'll dive more and spend a little bit more time on it. But is there one that what it actually looks like right now?
Yeah.
On here, Justin?
Yeah. So kind of those middle pictures there.
That one right there. That's good. Okay. So that's what it looks like right now. Okay.
Yep.
So you're driving, you find this building.
Yeah.
You're like, that's the one.
Not yet.
Okay.
So I said, well, maybe there's an opportunity there, right? So I've knocked on every other door. I've come this far. Let's make a call. So I pull it up in Access Day, and sure enough, I'm familiar with who the owner is.
Jake, you don't have to keep sharing it now if you don't. I don't know how it all works, but anyway.
familiar with the owner is, so I make a call, and the answer is sure enough, yes, I'd be interested in talking about this. And actually, the owner, my partner, Dustin Oler. I don't know if you're familiar with Dustin. He's in finance as well, right?
Okay.
So it was his dad that owned it. So this all kind of tied
Gotcha,
together
okay.
in a serendipitous way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've become really good friends.
Wait,
with
when
Dustin.
you called on it, did you know he owned it?
When I found through Access Dane is when I found out he owned it.
Oh,
so I
so
said, I've got connections here. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So right away.
Was he already identified as your partner before you found this?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No.
All right.
So this kind of all fell together.
Did
here.
you know him before this?
Oh yeah. So
Okay,
Dustin's a year older than me, Stoughton boy as well.
Got it. So you knew him. He
I knew
wasn't
him.
your partner at the time.
Yep.
You find this building on Access Dane so you can see who owns it,
Yep.
and that's when you connect the dots that he owns it, and then you
Correct.
reached out
Yes.
before you guys were partners. Okay.
Yep, and sure enough, so Dustin follows up with me, and we come up with this. He's
Sweet.
like, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm sitting there. Well, it's a little bigger than I wanted to bite off originally, but we got together and came up with a little bit of a financial model and how we could potentially make this work. And one step led to another, and I remember, I walked through this building for the first time, and it's, as you can tell, old and a little bit beaten up. And it at that point was really used.
It's one that like most people aren't gonna be like, I gotta have that building.
Exactly, right?
Which is usually what I'm buying too. I'm not usually buying this stuff, but I'm buying stuff that's still in a good location, but usually it's the stuff that people want to pass on.
And that was my thought, to be honest, right when I first saw the building, right on the outside. So I do a walkthrough with Dustin, and I get in, and it's fascinating. So it's full of a lot of stuff at that point. It's kind of been used as storage for however many years.
Yeah.
I've just accumulated things, so it was really hard to see, vision everything. But you walk in there and you get to see the exposed brick in a lot of areas, and then you get to see these 2-foot steel beams running all the way across, and it's almost a wide open canvas once you clean it out. And I'm like, right away I could see.
So
this
how many
is
square
really
feet
cool.
was that first floor? Or how many total square feet is the
About
building?
13,000 square feet.
13,000 square
Yep.
feet, so about 6,500
On
and
first and
6,500.
second, yep.
So you're on the first floor, and there's no walls in between. You can just have a wide open space. Pretty much.
There's only one wall kind of there dividing two
Got it.
sides, but for the most part, it's just a wide
Yeah,
open building.
I can see how your mind gets turned when
and
you
you're
see
looking,
that.
there's 16-foot high ceilings, and you're like, this is a really impressive building.
Yeah.
And it's it's 4-course brick all the way around, steel beams running through it. It's got all the the bones that I need to do something with, and it would look really cool. So right away, Dustin and I just kind of start running with it. And I go home to my wife that night, and I'm talking about this, and it's interesting to discuss these things. And I was trying to explain to her this building and where it was, and she's like, I don't even know what that is.
Right.
And I'm like, well, here's what I'm working on. Dustin and I have kind of gotten together. I'm going to tell you right now, there's maybe a 3% chance this works out. There's 100 hurdles we've got to cross.
That's how they all are.
For this to become a reality.
Yeah.
And it was just really fun through this whole experience over the last 2 years. We got a laundry list of things that we got to do, and we just keep checking off hurdle by hurdle. And it's in the next 2 months, like Amanda, I think we might really have a chance on this. We just got to get through these next hurdles,
Yep.
and you keep knocking them off.
What were the first initial hurdles?
First initial hurdles was, obviously the building.
'Cause I think that's where a lot of people that might be picking this up and listening,
Yeah.
if they want to go do something that you did and be able to convert an old warehouse or factory into apartments, I think a lot of people are so intimidated by maybe the first hurdle or second hurdle, and usually it's people get some momentum, they're all right.
Yeah.
But like for so go into a little bit more on that first hurdle or two.
The first hurdle was the building, where it's located, how it's zoned, right? So we ran a lot of numbers based on some of the city zoning requirements on how first floor has to be commercial space, or the majority of it does.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, originally were trying to make this thing work with apartments above and commercial spaces below. That location isn't necessarily the greatest, not being off of Main Street.
Yeah, for the commercial down there. Yeah.
And we ran some.
Granted, you're only like 70 feet off, but it's still it's enough where like in Stoughton, it's the main street's
correct,
awesome, but like
You're
if you're
just
off
off.
a little bit, it's not as good for a commercial.
It's just not a building that gets a ton of drive-by traffic.
Yeah.
So we ran some numbers. We're trying to think how we can get this to work with some commercial space down below, and it just wasn't going to be feasible. And so we're talking about how do we make this feasible, right? And then it became a density thing, and how do we get apartments in there, and what's kind of the number we need to get to in order to make this on paper look relatively feasible. And so we came up with some plans. Right away we hired an architect engineer. And I got a third party.
So is this still how you solved the zoning problem? Where you're going with that?
No, but I wanted to find out. I wanted to get an architect and engineer in there right away with some inspectors, just to find out if this was possible.
Got it. So you want to figure out okay,
Right.
Makes sense.
It's just to see if there's an opportunity here first before I go to the city, what it might look like to do this, right?
Got it.
Because I know in the city of Stoughton, as you do, there's in a lot of places in Dane, there's a really high need for housing.
Yeah.
So I knew I had that going for me. And so we
Yeah,
started.
for the people that are listening to that aren't from the area, I mean, Stoughton we're 15, 20 minutes to downtown Madison, which is Dane County in Wisconsin. And, I mean, just like so many places, housing's tight. There's a lot of demand, not too much supply. And that's, that's what we're kind of looking at here is it's, everything's typically 97% plus occupied, and there's growing populations all over the place here.
Yeah, so had some drawings made up, and then I kind of started those conversations with some city officials on what do I need to do to make this happen. So Dustin and I kind of started down that path, navigating.
Sounds
the
like
city.
to me you're just asking a lot of questions.
Yes, it was all questions, right?
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part because it's my first development project.
Yeah.
So, that's,
people overlook that. People overlook people think like they should already know it all. And it's like, no, like go ask. If you got a damn question, go ask somebody.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with the other comment that people get scared, turned away or scared of not knowing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I had no clue what I was doing.
I don't have any clue a lot of stuff that I'm doing. And that's why I'm asking questions. What can be done? What can be done?
So it's like who do I ask to answer this question? Is this possible, right? Can I do this? So I'm getting hooked up with people from the city, and they route me and Dustin on the route we have to take to try to get this thing rezoned. Okay, so then I'm making sure that I'm asking questions on how do I make this look? How do I make sure that the city realizes this is a positive move, right? Not just go and ask for a rezone. I want to make sure I have what I need to show this project and my ambitions for it and what I expect it to be in the long run.
And how everyone can benefit,
Exactly.
yourself,
Yes.
a lender, the downtown area,
Yes.
Citizens.
And so, that hurdle wasn't as large as I thought it would be. So I think the city was really on board kind of with that as an opportunity. So the rezoning was the first hurdle, and we knocked that off pretty quickly. Without much of an issue.
Do you have to put some stuff together and go to in front of the city and in front of council, or what do you have to?
Yeah, planning commission, city council. Me and Dustin probably went to 10, 15 different planning commission and city council meetings.
Just to get the zoning changed?
Not just the zoning change.
Okay, that was a whole project.
Yeah.
Okay,
the zoning
which isn't
was
too
actually,
bad, really.
The zoning actually went really smoothly.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So from there, you knock off the first hurdle, and it's okay, what's next? And as we continue to ask questions, one of the things we knew early on is this was a historical landmark in the city of Stoughton.
So you got another complexity.
Yeah. So right away, as we get through the rezoning, and this kind of opens that first door, is how do we make this possible? What options do we have as far as getting to the capital stack? How can we make this work? What do we need to make this work? And there's opportunities for TIF money. There's opportunities for other grants and stuff like that for restoring old buildings.
So is it fair to say that you guys were in a spot where basically you did the math on, okay, this is ballpark what it's going to cost to get this converted.
Yep.
This is the rents that we could get if we get this many apartments in there. And then you're like doing the math on, okay, traditionally us putting down 20 or 25%, there's not enough reward there for us to take that risk.
Exactly.
Is that where you got to?
Exactly. So, I have my experience in commercial lending. Dustin his career is in commercial lending. So right away, we're putting pro formas together.
Yeah. Day
one, before we even cross any hurdles, is pro formas. What do we need to make this feasible? And so, Stoughton's rent market right now is what it is. It's a little bit lower than a lot of things. And really for new builds, as anything that's a new construction right now basically has to be a Class A with high rents in a downtown area to be feasible.
In order to make the numbers work.
Exactly.
Without any grants or,
Yep.
TIF
And so it's
like
really difficult nowadays to do a new build or a rehab or anything like that, but the interest rates where they are, the cost to build where they are. And so,
Jesus, even before interest rates went up, it was hard to make like workforce housing work with no tax, incremental financing and all that.
So, we're exploring every contact that we have and just trying to find out what's out there. What can make this feasible? How can we get creative in making this work, right?
When it wasn't as feasible, when you're just looking at with no incentives, where were you at? Like basically no return, like 1%.
We're negative.
Negative. Okay.
Negative, but it was close enough to where if you could get creative and maybe find ways to make it work, there was still an opportunity.
Yep. Whether it's through TIF or whatever. Which how do you explain? So maybe you're gonna get there, but for someone that's listening for the first time that's never heard of TIF, what is TIF and what's it stand for and what is it all about?
So it's tax incremental financing, right? So it's an incentive that municipalities or cities will often offer in order to encourage development, right, on projects that may not be feasible or possible.
Right.
So basically how it works is, we present a new building or deliver a new building that increases the tax base for that building in that area. And in return of that tax base that's increased, the city will then give you a portion of that back.
Yep. For X amount of years.
For X amount of years,
right.
Correct, up to generally a certain amount. Yeah.
So it gets you to a point where it kind of backfill for, and a lot of times this is, you got to develop and then they're going to give you this reward, right?
Correct.
They're not going to give it to you. I mean, some places give it to you up front or whatever. But
yeah, that's kind of been phased out a little bit.
Yeah.
The upfront part.
People
of
probably
it.
abuse that.
Generally it's pay as you go, so they pay you.
Yep. So
over
you
the
develop,
numbers.
you develop. Then once it's done, they're going to start basically paying you back your real estate tax you go in. So you essentially have no real estate taxes for 5 or 7 or 15 or 30 years, whatever it might be.
To put simply, yeah, you're reducing your real estate taxes over the next, in our case, 19 years. Is how this,
which gives
how the
you
math
more
worked
revenue
out.
or a higher net operating income, whatever,
Correct.
to then now take your returns from being negative to giving you a positive 6%, 10%, whatever it might be, a reasonable cash on cash return to want to be able to do the project.
It gets us to a closer point where we can then take it into it if we needed investors or bank financing, where we can get closer to that point of showing this is a viable project.
Makes sense.
And that was one piece of the puzzle. And then even with, you go through these TIF kind of negotiations with the city, not really negotiations, but, you supply data, they come back with their questions, and you get to come, really they're in control of kind of where that lies. And so for us, we still needed to get very creative with our capital stack to make this work. And TIF really helped, and it's a great thing for municipalities to offer. Without it, we would have no chance on this. But we still needed to get more creative in how we wanted this project to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, some of our conversations, we got hooked up with state and historical tax credit, preservation tax credits, right?
Yeah.
Historical landmark.
Yeah.
So Dustin and I kind of dove into that, and that was, way over our heads. Way too much work to grasp. We didn't have the time, the expertise, the way to navigate
and like the size of 14 units. It's 14 units, right?
17.
17 units. Is it even worth all that headache on only 17 units?
And that was our initial
Because your
thought.
upside is only so much on 17. If it was going to be a 1,700 unit development in some other big city, now let's look at or 200 units, whatever. Something much more.
That was exactly our first thought.
Yeah.
Is it going to be worth it, right?
Yeah.
And so as we did some more research and continued to get kind of delved into that, we just decided, we need to ask somebody how this works. So we found a wonderful consulting agency, Heritage Consulting. In fact, we got hooked up with a consultant that used to work for NPS and SHPO, who was on the other end of approving these things.
NPS,
National Park Services.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
SHPO. Don't ask me what the acronym is.
So they would typically approve something of what you're looking for a historical grant or something?
They're the ones that have the final say.
Got it.
So right, so there's a lot of applications and paperwork that needs to be filled out, and it needs to be filled out in a very specific way.
All right. So they knew, obviously, this consultant
knew how to do it,
right?
So that's where you got to go and ask questions and find the right people.
Yeah.
So we met with her several times, and she took us through how the process works, made us very comfortable, and kind of really made it clear on the benefits that this could offer, right? So we pursued that, and that added a lot of additional, not just cost, but a lot of additional headaches to the project. And that when you're pursuing something like that, it's a very, very strict process that you have very little say in. Which is, I understand that, right? That's the purpose of the project.
Mm-hmm.
But it just added another monkey wrench as we went along. So
when you have very little say in what, as far as like what you have to keep on the building?
Exactly.
Or?
So, we can talk more about this as we go through the building, but it's, for example, we're looking at a picture now of the brick on the outside. There's ephes all around the rest of the building, a stucco ephes that we get to take off, right? So as a part of this
then there'll
process,
be more brick underneath
yes,
next year.
It's all brick all around now at this point.
Yeah.
And where the ephes was, we had to go and get approval to cut a hole in the side so we could see the brick behind the ephes.
I see.
Because as these buildings were built, as my understanding is, this front brick is painted white, but it used to be red brick. So back in the early 1900s, they would do red brick on the street facing. The rest of the building would be a less expensive white brick.
Oh, interesting.
So we had to try to get a hole in the side and get approval so we could expose just a portion of that brick to see if it was painted or not. Because if it was painted, that meant we could repaint it. If it was not painted, that means we cannot repaint it.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of just a little nuance to everything. And for somebody in my position without years of experience in that, I would never know how to navigate any of that.
Yeah.
And you really risk making a mistake on the simplest of things that could really end up hurting you in the long run. So there's examples of that all over this building.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the kind of right behind this front right portion is this used to be a Model T factory in the 1920s. And so right behind that front right portion is about 1,000 square feet of travertine floor, original travertine floor. Still really good shape. And we have to submit pictures of every corner of this building to SHPO and NPS and let them review everything. And that travertine floor was a big piece, and they wanted to showcase that still.
Yeah.
So originally we had a unit up in that front right corner, 18
Is there a picture
units.
of the travertine floor?
I don't have one, but I can.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a unit up there, so they really wanted that to be exposed, no structures on it. So we took that unit out, which in the end we kind of liked it. We're going to turn it into a community room, be a nice area to kind of get people out and maybe add some workstations and a theater, whatever we want to do really in the future with it. But it's a beautiful travertine floor, and it's things like that all over this building that they really want you to keep. So it's kind of, in a sense...
So, but then what do you get for keeping that?
We get to stay, as long as we meet all the requirements, right, we get the state and historical tax credits. So that's the benefit to us doing this.
Okay.
I don't know that we explained that whole program.
Yeah, I know.
Right, so state and federal preservation historical tax credits, both state and federal will reimburse over tax credits 20% each of the total project costs, right? Excluding a few soft costs.
So that's the entire project, not just what you kind of have to refurbish to get to this. So it's the entire project.
It's essentially, minus a few outlying things, the entire project to get it to completion.
Oh, interesting.
So it is of great value.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what put us over the hump. As we continue down this path of how do we get creative, it was that right there that made the numbers
interesting,
feasible. So we continue to pursue that, and it was one of the best decisions we made was hiring this consultant. Otherwise, we would have had no shot getting through that. There's a lot more to the tax credits that benefit us. If you want to talk about the capital stack and how that fits in, and kind of how we structured this, Dustin's father owned the building, right? So he's going to leave some equity in, right? So this is where it's interesting, because being a first-time developer on a project like this, anybody could have done it if they asked the right questions, involved the right people, right? Anybody could have done it. And so we had to get very creative.
You gotta be able to see it though, because most people, how many people, actually, I think I told you that building right to the right, actually, you can see the stairs going up. Yeah. I looked at buying that like 10, 15 years ago or whatever. I passed on it. It's like, I've been by this building. I can't tell you how many times I've been by this building, right? So like, this building's been passed by so many people over the last how many years.
It's amazing. I've lived here my entire life.
Your back gets put against the wall, and now all of a sudden you see it. You don't see just that building anymore. You see opportunity.
Yes.
So you see something different when your back's against the wall.
Yeah, no, that's, going back to that part of the story, that's losing my business, and then the whole new world opened up to me, right? And so, we've talked about it. If you're out there, if you show up and you're looking for opportunities, you can find them. And they don't just, again, fall into your lap. You got to have your eyes open. And for me, it was a blessing in disguise, I guess, is how I'm going to look at it, and losing my business opportunity that I had, move on and I can find a new one. Yeah. Cross my fingers that this one is a good investment. For sure. But regardless, it's been a wonderful experience to this point, and I'm looking forward to it.
So what does that capital stack look like then? So your buddy's father who owned the building kept some equity in.
Kept some equity in as part of it.
When did he initially buy the building?
1996.
Okay,
so he bought it from Stoughton Utilities, was there prior to him.
Okay.
And then he ran his own electrician business out of there.
Got it.
So he bought it in 96, been sitting on it for quite a while. Okay. And he's involved, so he gets to be involved in the deal as well, which is wonderful for him. He's just a wonderful guy. He's so excited to see something happen with his building.
Yeah, he gets to take something that he's been sitting on for a while and not much going on.
And that's why we named it what we did, right? So he grew up with his family and his kids in there, like I grew up with my dad and my business, and they used to call it the shop. So that's how he came up with the name, the Shop Lofts. So,
Shop Lofts.
A little
nod to the family and business. Yeah.
So he gets to leave some equity, and he gets to stay a part of his building. Yep. We needed to find some private money, right? So we got a preferred equity partner who's another gentleman who's born and raised in Stoughton, very invested in the community, really likes our idea. Got him on board, right? So we had to go and do a little work to find that. And then we went through TIF with the city and all of those discussions, and working with the city and how do we get this project done, and between all of us, how can we deliver it to the city? So we went through TIF, signed up with a TIF agreement, with the city of Stoughton. We could add that to our capital stack. We had to write in state and...
So the cool thing was, people are listening, and again, I don't know, I'm not the expert on TIF, all that stuff, but you get to count that as equity towards the project. Yep. So like when a lender now looks at it, they see, okay, you got the current... you got the current owner who's keeping equity in, right? So that counts towards basically your down payment or your equity into the deal. You got this TIF basically it becomes an asset. You got this
Correct.
TIF asset that you can count. There's a value to that that it can count towards your equity and basically your down payment towards the deal.
Yep.
Okay, and then what else was there? Do you have anything historical then? Did
Pref equity, so then the historical credit.
The pref equity, okay.
So the historical tax credit was interesting to navigate and how we could try to include that in our capital stack. So how the state and federal tax credits work, one, they're credits, they come over time. They're delivered over 5 years up to a certain amount. If you don't claim that much in taxes over those 5 years, they extend up to 20 years, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it gives you plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are ways to monetize that up front. So we put quite a bit of work in trying to figure out how we could monetize those
Can
credits.
You sell them off, or
you
what?
You can, right? So the state tax credits are a little bit easier to sell than the federal. I'm not going to claim to be an expert at this yet, but on the federal side, if you're selling the federal tax credits, the person you're selling them to has to have some kind of ownership stake in the property.
Mm-hmm.
So that added a few wrinkles that we didn't know that we wanted to really deal with. On the state side, it actually went.
So there's two tranches of the historical
Correct.
credits that you actually used on this building.
Yeah, that we will use. Yes.
Okay.
So the state side, we did some exploring on, and we worked a little bit with a couple of our connections again, Baker Tilly and some others that were able to help us kind of through this, and we explored how can we sell the state tax credits. And so they connected us with a few people, and it turns out that there's really a market for that stuff. And generally the market, my understanding, was for larger projects than ours, but there was still a pretty good market right now for projects of our size. So we entertained discussions.
Probably not as an aggressive rate,
yes,
right?
Right.
Okay.
So we had to kind of play that game a little bit, and our understanding was tax credits like ours sell for 75 cents on the dollar oftentimes, right? So we ended up finding a buyer for ours for 83 cents on the dollar. So we'll take that money for us. We'll take that money up front. It's more valuable to us now than it would be over the next 5-10 years.
So I just want to follow this in my head. So you have a tax credit, and let's say the tax credit's worth it's a $100,000 tax credit, just for easy math.
Yep.
83 cents on the dollar.
Correct.
So someone basically paid you.
Yep.
$83,000 in that scenario. If this was $100,000,
Yep.
they paid you $83,000, and for that $83,000, they got to actually write off $100,000.
Correct.
On their taxes.
Yep.
And that's it then,
exactly.
right?
Yep. So they're paying 83 to make 100.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense.
So the interesting part about the state tax.
But then there's like no actual other return on that then, right?
No.
They're just basically getting the credit. And they're just, so basically instead of, that makes sense. Okay. So if that person had a $100,000 tax bill,
yes.
instead of paying $100,000, they paid you 83.
You got to find the right buyers.
Yeah.
That can
They
really take
paid you
advantage of that.
83
Yep.
and then now that, and they got $100,000 of tax credit. So I see.
You're looking for the
Gotta
right
work that all the way
buyers
through.
because obviously for it to make sense for the buyer, they want to be able to write that off right away, very quickly.
Yeah. Yep.
So they gotta have the tax to offset that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And so the tax credit now doesn't really go into our initial capital stack, right? So we're kind of backfilling that with our private equity position, or private money.
So why is that not right in the capital stack?
Because we don't get that until after occupancy.
But you really don't get the TIF until after it too, right? It's got to be developed.
Yeah,
right?
but at the same time, it's guaranteed in a contract in writing. So
and yours isn't guaranteed.
no, we get
even if you.
We don't get the full sign off, right, until we.
So it's a little bit unknown.
It's a slight unknown, right? So we have conditional approval.
But if
at
that
this
person
point.
were to renegotiate or something, you probably just take it back to market at that point.
Oh no, the sales side of it we're good on, right? As long as the tax credit comes through.
I see.
So we still have things to go through on the tax
Okay.
credit side. We have an agreement already with the buyer on the state tax credit. That's not the concern. The concern would be if we don't get the state tax credit for whatever reason.
Oh, got it.
So as we
it's
start-
not the buyer, it's the
Correct.
Got it.
So the state's tax credit won't be available until occupancy, essentially.
Because
And
they're going to double check to
they're
make
gonna
sure you
double check
did
to make
everything
sure
right.
everything was done according to the guidelines set.
Do they come and check it during? It's like once you start this project, do they come and check it out during or not?
No, project our size, they're not going to.
So
they
just
may
be
require
after.
pictures and updates along the way.
Yeah.
They're really going to be concerned about.
Yeah. So it's
when we
important you don't
deliver.
F that up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's that's interesting too. I've been going through all this work for the last 2 years. Dustin and I are really looking for a time where we could take some time off of working on this. And in our minds, it was when we put it in the hands of the GC, we're done until for a few months.
No.
Not the case. Now you've got to be on top of everything every day, back and
Yeah,
forth
yeah.
between GC, historical,
Yeah.
everybody, making sure that the tiniest of things we
Yeah.
can do are done correctly.
Yeah.
So the tax credit, when we get that upon occupancy, we're going to use that to go back into our pref equity, to pay down our pref equity,
Oh, okay.
a big chunk of that,
Yeah.
so we can relieve some of that burden and
Yep.
leverage on the property.
Yep.
So that's where that's going to go. The federal side, we're going to keep. It wasn't worth it in that case. We've decided to try to monetize that. We're still looking into it a little bit, but that we're just probably going to take on the yearly basis at this point,
Gotcha.
which is a nice little backstop to have.
Yeah.
Right? So that we could use that for the reserve fund, however we
Yeah.
wanted to use it to try
Yeah.
to make sure we can get through.
See, and I think someone listens like, oh, damn, you guys just really went in the weeds there. But, you start to pick up some momentum on some of this stuff, and then you get like super jacked. You get excited because now you're like, oh, damn, I'm like making, and you start to see like the puzzle pieces start to fit together. And like you said at the beginning, there's like 3% chance to your
Yes.
wife. There's a 3% chance that this happens, but it's like you clear one hurdle. Now you're just like, oh man, I'm at a 6% chance that now this is going to happen. And
It's
then
a
you
fun-
clear another hole, and then you just get more and more excited.
It's a really fun
going through
zone
it.
to be in because you're so narrowly focused
For sure.
on the task at hand.
Yeah.
And it's nothing else outside
And the
that
cool
matters.
thing is like everything that you learn there, you can go duplicate this again.
Oh yeah. And that's that's one of the really exciting parts about how this project turned out is it's a really unique structure, really unique concept, really unique building. And it's, for Dustin and I, it's a real niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there other opportunities out there like this?
Right.
And and you alluded to earlier, there's a lot of challenges in this project. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of research you have to do, a lot of people you have to reach out to for the right support and how to
Yeah.
get this done. And that's a hurdle to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, as we got deeper into this, keep checking out those boxes, and the more momentum you gain, the more you want to learn,
100%.
the more you want to do it again.
Yeah, that's great. So what's that was a lot of detail right there. That's awesome though. I actually just really learned a lot. It's really cool.
You ever dabbled in any of that?
No, I've never done it. Again, like I've just kind of found my niche, like you said before, in a little niche, and just keep rolling in that. I've never really done something like this. Obviously, we've bought a converted building, the old Cotton Mills building down there in Janesville. We rebranded as Signature 23, and so we're going through and like rehab. We've rehabbed parts of that building. We're going to go through and rehab more of it, but we're not like doing full out conversions, right? We're still, it's like cabinets, flooring. It's not a straight up taking up
it wasn't
blank space and completely.
It
doing what
wasn't
you're
my original intent to get into that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, as we went through the process, that's how it evolved.
doing. Yeah.
But I'm very thankful that it went this way because the learning experience going through this is invaluable.
Yeah.
To be able to take the tools and the resources and the connections that I've made through this and continue to use them in anything else that I do in life or real estate. This was a huge challenge that offered a huge learning opportunity for me.
Yeah. So what else, what was it like working with the lender through this whole process?
Great.
With all the moving pieces and all the things up in the air, that you were kind of pushing. Like, at what point did you engage a lender or start to talk to lenders?
Pretty late on, actually, right? So Dustin and I both having that back-end experience, we really wanted to make sure this was buttoned up, right? So that it would look very impressive to a lender.
For sure.
I didn't want to bring something in that,
Start
a
off on the wrong
rehab
foot.
project, start off on the wrong foot.
Not a good first impression.
Exactly.
And they're like,
There was no need to get a lender involved until we knew that we had something that was very solid, that we could show would be successful, feasible.
Which is interesting because there's a lot of people that come to me like, oh, I need to go talk to, I need to go start my LLC. I need to go start to talk to a lender. I'm like, well, really not. Like, when you go find the opportunity. Go find the opportunity and get it to a point where now you can package it up. And
a lot of people miss that, right? So I see that in my day job too. Is a lot of people have the idea of what they want to do, and that's great, but they don't package in a way to use it as a presentation to the lender. Right? And that's kind of how I wanted to frame this. Is I wanted to make sure my presentation, like I've done for the city and everybody else involved, was all buttoned up in a way that it looks impressive to them. And we were really able to do that, and that was the capital stack plus the tax credit, everything that we worked to get to that point, to be able to present that to them and present it to the bank in this case, which would be a risky project, right? At a low 50 LTV, right? So for them, it's a very good-looking sheet that we were able to provide for them that really made it hard for them to say no.
Are you able to, I don't know if you're able to share or not, but if it's 50% LTV, what percentage was the TIF money up front of the down payment? It was like a 5%, 10%, 25%?
TIF would probably be, just loose at the top of my head, maybe 15%.
15%.
Project costs. Yeah.
Okay. So package it up, take it to the lender. You kind of shared everything else that you've kind of done here. Any other interesting stories or with, kind of getting to the point where you're at now, or do you want to jump ahead to kind of where the project's at now and what's kind of going on?
Let's go through the project and we can go back and forth after that. So what do you want to know?
So how many units you got in there? 17 units.
There'll be 17 units.
Okay. How'd you just figure out, again, like this is like a unique project. We keep saying that. So how do you figure out what your comps are going to be? How do you figure out what your rents are going to be? What'd you do there? How'd you figure that out?
That is difficult. We're trying to find that. What's important to me is kind of make this to Dustin and I was make it a natural, affordable housing, right?
So not going Section 42
not
or
Section
anything
42,
like that, but just be able to get
make it
yourself into
affordable.
the projects where it's still, yeah.
And that's what our downtown demands, right?
Yeah.
So I'm big on Stoughton. You know that. I've been heavily involved in Stoughton, heavily involved in the community. And I know how the downtown is. It's really close to flourishing, right? It could be such a beautiful downtown. It is right now.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see, some of these buildings get filled. Some of these things get upgraded.
Yeah, because there's not much like new. I feel like there's not as many newer apartments down there. There's a couple,
yeah,
right, but there's not very much that's newer.
And when you're building in the downtown, right, there's certain benefits to it and there's certain drawbacks, right? And so how do we get to, in our minds, we had that number picked out of what we could charge for rent and fill these things, right? And it's not a Class A rent. We can't build new and get $1,800 for a 1 unit.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't going to be an option for us. So how do we get to where we need to be, what we think is a fair rent that's going to make sure we get this occupied? And we were able to do that. And, comp-wise, it was difficult because downtown Stoughton, a lot of the rental units, like you said, have not been updated. They're not new. They don't turn over very much.
Right. Long-term tenants, rents are probably pretty low.
Yeah. So we did a lot of comparisons. Kind of 51 West, right? We used as a comp in the sense that that's your new Class
Brand new
A
building. Yeah.
What are they doing? What are they charging for a studio, 1 bedroom, a 2 bedroom? We want to find an area below that, right? So I'd really like to see, having been in Stoughton for so long, really what I'd like to see us improve on is we've got a wonderful manufacturing business, a lot of great large businesses. We've got our own hospital that's expanding, our school
They're
district.
doing a huge expansion out there.
Stoughton Trailers is wonderful.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of great large employees in Stoughton. And I shared a lot of conversations with a lot of those businesses, and I found it very fascinating how many of their early career workers, younger, looking to start a family, how many of them lived outside of Stoughton. The majority,
because they thought they didn't have an option.
Correct. Too expensive, didn't have options. The majority of those workers live outside of Stoughton for a lot of those businesses. And so how do we start to bring in some of that opportunity into Stoughton, right? So we've got a lot of development going on in Stoughton right now. You got the trailers, you got 51 West, you got Eldon Homes doing great things.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot of great things happening in Stoughton. And to me,
it's good for the wife's dental business.
Yeah, that's true. So it's to me, I think one of the missing pieces that we have is how do we get those young professionals in Stoughton that want to put ties into Stoughton, and then grow into their own house in Stoughton, grow a family in Stoughton. Mm-hmm. And I think we've been kind of missing the boat on that a little bit. And one of my concerns, we're kind of getting to my personal passion part of this project now. One of my concerns being in Stoughton forever is watching the school enrollment decline. Mm-hmm. And that's bothered me. So when I was in high school, Oregon was our little brother. Yeah. And now we seem to be the little brother to Oregon. Right. And it's, it's kind of frustrating to see that, and how do we turn that corner? And so we've had a lot of great things happen in Stoughton, the referendums going through, which I think is going to be a great boost. Open enrollment now we have in schools. Yep. And so that concerns me, seeing those numbers. Yep. And so how do we kind of reverse these trends that we have going on, right? Makes sense. And specifically when it comes to downtown, we've got a lot of wonderful business owners downtown, a lot of wonderful businesses, such a beautiful downtown. How do we continue to allow that to flourish, right? In my mind, it's so close to being a really, really self-sufficient, self-sustaining downtown that we can continue to grow and continue to aesthetically improve some areas and do some backfill and stuff like this.
Well, for sure. I mean, this project being where it's at, I mean, you're 1 block off, Main Street, and then you're on the main, and I mean, if you add 17 households to that right there, that's impactful to the restaurants right on the corner, the dessert shop, cheeser, and that's exactly all the places.
Yep. So as part of our presentation to the city,
and honestly, it'd be appealing to be able to live there if you are young on the younger end to be able to do that. Just walk. You and your wife or yourself or whatever walk. To be able to walk to some of the great restaurants that are down there and stuff.
I tried to get my wife to move in there, but she told me no.
There you go.
So we did a whole presentation on that, right? So 25 permanent residents in a downtown like this makes a huge difference. Yeah. And that was a good thing to be able to show the city. And I think they appreciated sharing that with them, and hopefully it triggers more of that, right? So there's a new TID district, which is part of the TIF. That's how you kind of get to the TIF, developed around us. And, a hope would be that spurs other improvements in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can continue to kind of get some more revenue in downtown, build it up aesthetically, offer these opportunities for others to make improvements, maybe driving a little bit more of development, so to speak, in this area, there's a tons of potential for downtown Stoughton. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I think hopefully this helps spur some of that. And
so then your comps were basically the new construction, and you're just like, okay, if I can have some type of a reduction underneath that, because this isn't going to still be, as much as like the apartments inside are going to be beautiful, they're going to be new, they're still not going to be the brand new underground parking type construction.
We have a niche, yeah. So no underground parking, for example.
Yep.
There's, you got smaller square footage in downtown units, right? So there's
what are your square footages?
This shows them out here. So we got the kind of the studio 1 bedroom, so they still have the wall block off, so they're micro 1. And you consider them 440 square feet. We got 4 of those. 10 1 bedrooms at 650. 2 bedrooms, 2 of those at 840, and a 3 bedroom at 1,040.
Yeah.
So very average size, right, for downtown,
yeah,
but not what you're kind of getting in these new Class A builds.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. Our niche is that we have that industrial modern look with super high ceilings.
Yep.
So they're going to look unique. They're going to look bigger, right? So, kind of our niche market was to sit below the Class A new builds. We wanted to carve out an area in there, right? And one of the benefits to that is we've got, rents have been appreciating quite quickly here is we found our spot right now, and nobody else. It's nearly impossible, as you know, to do any kind of new build or rehab and charge these kind of rent rates. You just can't do it. So we kind of set ourselves up, I think, pretty safely in that market. Now we get to follow the new builds. So as 51 West builds or anything else that might go out in the new developments in Stoughton, I know what prices that they're going to have to start their rent off to make these feasible.
Yeah.
And so as they raise that floor, right, I have a nice comfort zone there where there's a good market for renters for me.
Sure.
And that was kind of my idea behind making it work at these certain
So those micro units, what are those rents starting at?
$1,000.
$1,000 for
and we got time till this is built, but right now it's kind of a pro forma.
And you washer dryer?
Yes, and washer dryer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. What about the other ones?
1 bedrooms will be around $1,250, and again, we'll wait to see how when we get to deliver this project. That's what we're kind of performing off. 2 bedrooms are going to be around $1,650, $1,700.
How big are those 2 bedrooms again?
$840.
Okay, so you're about $1.80, or what are you?
Yeah, we're about $1.90 a square foot up there, which is a little bit high, but that's a little bit higher than what we're seeing in the market.
Yeah.
But it's a different area, different amenities, different kind of setup. So it's hard to compare dollar per square foot,
right,
to kind of what the other builds are.
Yep. 3 bedroom. What's your projected rent on the 3?
I think we're gonna try to get $1,900 maybe in there. Yep.
Yeah, got it. So now, did this building does this being downtown, is parking an issue? Did you have a parking lot, or what's the parking looking like here?
So we sit on that north municipal lot, right?
Oh, that's
so
right.
For those that can't see it, there's a parking lot that this building sits on.
Yeah.
It's got 88 stalls.
That's right.
So this is a fun story. And I knew this would be an issue with the city of Stoughton. I remember talking with Dustin when we first kind of developed this whole plan, and he says, well, the city's going to love this. We're bringing in new housing at these rent rates, and we're restoring a historical landmark in the city of Stoughton. What would they say no to? And I remember telling Dustin that it's not going to be that easy. There's going to be a lot of hurdles we got to go through. And right away in our first presentation, I wanted to bring up parking because I knew there'd be pushback on that. And of course there was, they wanted a parking plan, and I wanted to be upfront with them that this was something that we're thinking about, and we need to have a plan for this. Not only for...
They told you they wanted a parking plan from you.
Correct.
But there's no parking lot.
It gets interesting, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I brought it up right away because I wanted to get that elephant.
They had to have thought that you were going to say, hey, how can we get some of these spaces?
Correct.
That they had to have probably thought that, right?
Yes, that's the inclination that they came in with right away.
Okay. And they wanted to hear from you to maybe see how that would work,
exactly.
or what it would look like?
Yeah, so that was kind of what they had, and I knew they were going to say that, so I wanted to open that door right away to kind of get a feel for what their thoughts were on this. Because that's very important. It's not 2 units, it's not 4 units, it's 17 units.
Mm-hmm.
So that's... You know, when you're talking about the value of the
so
building.
you probably need how many parking spaces should you have there? 28? No, 20.
It depends how you want to measure it.
24 to 30?
It depends whose rules you go by.
Yeah.
So Stoughton, for example, doesn't have any parking ordinance rules. So there is no requirements whatsoever for parking.
But it could still hinder your leasing efforts.
It hinders our leasing efforts, plus the overall feasibility of the project, right?
Yeah.
So when we're investing our livelihoods in this with young children at home, is every part of this matters, and you got to think about everything that goes into this, because the last thing I want to do is start over with a new family at age 37. I don't want to go through that experience again. And so parking was important to me and Dustin.
Yeah.
Because that adds a lot of value to the building. It takes a lot of risk off the table.
Yep.
So you never know what might happen with this north lot, right? Somebody could come in and develop on it.
For sure.
It'd be a prime spot to develop.
Yeah. And now you've got nothing.
In fact, I spent a lot of time reading through RDA plans, old future plans for the city, and I found in their RDA plans from 2019 there was actually plans to develop on this lot. Very preliminary plans.
Did the lender ever ask you what the parking plan was going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
That was important to lenders.
Okay. I think it would be.
Just because the cities don't require it, a lender is going to be very cognizant of what that looks like. So yes, that was a big part of this whole thing too. So
you got me on the edge of my seat. I want to know how many parking spots you have. If you don't tell me, I'll just let you tell
it. It's good. So this was a lot of meetings with.
How many parking spots are there? Just tell me. No, I'm just kidding.
I do have that number.
Keep going.
So there was some pushback on that, which I knew there would be, and so I asked the city for parking studies and kind of. I don't believe there's a parking problem downtown Stoughton. I go through that lot; it was always open. There's a lot of parking on Main Street. There's a south lot, basically on the other side of Main Street, in the same spot, of the same size.
Bumping though.
Right, set them is fine. But beyond the other 364 days of the year, it's an underutilized parking lot.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And that's a bad sign for any downtown population city, right? You should have tight on parking. That means your downtown is thriving. If you have a lot of open parking stalls, that's a bad sign for a downtown. So anyway, I asked for parking plan studies. The city doesn't have any of those. So I would drive by the parking lot 3 times a day.
So normally the city in this scenario would have, like for their entire downtown, would have some type of study on this? That's what you were asking for?
I wouldn't say normally, but at the point where it becomes such a concern, right? And there's people that think it's such a big problem
for their entire downtown and district.
Exactly. If it is such a big problem, I think it's fair to think that they might have a study going for that if they're addressing that issue.
I thought of that, yeah.
That wasn't necessarily the case. So I would drive down 3 times a day, every different day of the week.
Yeah.
Every different time.
Taking video.
With my piece of paper, and I would write down how many spots were available at that time.
Yeah.
Put them in an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I would do that for the north and the south parking lot.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I'd had.
When you say north and south parking lot, it's all that, just that one almost contiguous.
Yeah. So for those listening, we have a parking lot that we sit on, and I referenced the north, which is the north side of Main Street.
Yeah.
So if you go across Main Street to the south side, behind that row of buildings on Main Street, there's another parking lot down the. You know which one I'm talking about.
Probably.
Yeah. It's the same size, same thing. So there's 2 of them within, 200 yards of each other, opposite sides of Main Street.
Yeah.
So I'm counting those in a nice spreadsheet, and I find out that our north lot is 53% utilized.
Oh, the one behind where Outdoor Homes is.
Yes, right behind Outdoor Homes.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
So ours is 53% utilized any given time, any given day, never less than, 30 stalls open at any given time. There's 88 total stalls in that parking lot. I go to the south lot. There's 85 stalls. That's about 46% utilized, if I can remember.
And the city owns that.
City owns both of those, correct. Yeah. And so I'm doing all these studies. I, in fact, between Google Maps and driving around, I counted exactly how many stalls there were in the downtown business district, basically from the railroad tracks on the east side of Main Street down to the bridge on the west side. I counted all those, and 1 block off, and any other municipal parking.
Yeah.
And so I came kind of ready for the next conversations with the city, and presented my data to them, right, and my argument as to why I don't believe parking is an issue. And this kind of, we were never really pushing for anything specific.
Why you don't think parking is an issue for downtown in general?
I wanted to cover that before I started requesting anything specifically. And I wanted the city to try to kind of come up with their own plan, which was best for our project, knowing that we were going to require parking and see if they could come up with something creative. The first hurdle I had to get them over was the belief that we had a downtown parking problem. Mm-hmm. And so that was my first step in this plan. And so I presented the data. I think some people, really listened to it, and I think others didn't want to hear it because as a developer, I was the one that was delivering it.
Yeah, you could have just been making it up.
Could have, making it up or whatever, which I have no incentive to do.
Yeah.
And for me, I found it, interesting as we went through this meeting and these initial conversations was, why am I the only one that knows how many parking stalls are in the downtown business district?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I the one, if you don't want to accept kind of the data I'm coming up with, why am I the one that's being responsible for doing this? If we think it's such a large problem.
Yeah, because you initially asked for their study.
Yes.
So they didn't have one, so you did your own study.
If it's such a large problem, how do we overcome this?
Yeah.
And parking was a long battle, and I understand it, right? It's an important piece
long
of
battle.
downtown.
Was it like 2 months? Like
2 years. Yeah.
That's crazy.
This whole start to finish, getting everything buttoned up to the point of approval, restart construction was about 2 years.
Okay, and parking lasted a long time of that.
Parking was brought up in the first meeting, and parking was basically the final thing to get checked off before we started construction.
All right.
So, continuing down this parking thing, we eventually, got to a point of talking about a lease structure. And we were going to ask for the minimum number of stalls. We wanted just 17 stalls. 1 per unit would protect us, in our minds, right? 30-year lease.
That's so tough, though, with
it is.
With a 3-bedroom, 2 bedrooms.
It is, right? It's the minimum that we wanted to ask for, and we were comfortable.
I was thinking you were going to be like, okay, 1.25 or something. But okay, keep going.
No, I think that would be the
Bank was good with 17?
Bank was okay with that.
Okay.
And so we pursued that. We got pretty far down the path, and then in the end, it got some more pushback from some officials and some members of our city, and we tried to continue to have discussions around it. And really, it was for me, I was never frustrated with it.
Yeah.
Never upset with the city, I would say. The challenge for me was how do I get these people that are against it in the city that have trepidation around the parking, how do I get them to kind of see it from a different side, right? And that was always the challenge as we're investing a lot of money in this project. It's a great project for the downtown area. I don't think that can be debated. It brings tons of revenue, tons of opportunity, housing that's direly needed. We talked about the revenue to downtown businesses. Yeah. If you just can take a step back and look at the overall value this project offers to the city, can we start there and then work towards solutions? And the hurdle for us was that we could never really get past the first step of parking, and never get to the full picture. Yeah. So that's really what kind of made this such a long haul over that issue specifically. And again, working with the city it was a challenge. In the end, we ended up coming to a way to find an agreement on this, and it wasn't a lease. We were close on a lease, and then that kind of fell through. And I can get somewhat candid on this here. I'm trying to be careful with the words that I say. For sure. We had a lease kind of rough agreement that we were discussing. And then some pushback came about a lease to us being unfair, right? And that being a hurdle. If we offer a lease to this developer, do we not have to offer a lease to every other residential unit or building owner downtown?
It's up to them. They wouldn't have to.
And that was kind of my argument, right? And that was,
it's up to them.
We had I brought that up to the city attorney, and there's nothing illegal about it, right? It's totally up to the discretion of the city. Yeah. And so a few members had a real issue with that. And to me, my pitch was, well, if they're going to invest this much in the downtown Stoughton and their requirement is that you offer a parking stall, well, then you take that by a case-by-case basis. Right. So I'm literally investing my livelihood in this.
Yeah, and you're one of the first ones to do it. They want more houses downtown.
And I think that's the reason why on this case-by-case basis that I should be considered for something like this. Yeah. Without it, I'm not comfortable doing the project. What happens if you develop on that piece of land while I'm owning this building, and then all of a sudden my value in that building drops exponentially? I'm underwater. I don't have a choice. Yeah. So we had to continue to find solutions. And Dustin and I brought it up at one of the meetings of, well, how about a deed restriction? What can protect us to make sure that we have some semblance of control over parking? Because we just don't want something that important being completely out of our control. And so we talked about a deed restriction. The city and the kind of the opposition that was against the original parking lease was very much then in favor, along with a deed restriction on that north parking lot. Do you know what a deed restriction is on that?
So explain what a deed restriction is.
So what we were going for in a deed restriction basically outlines the city, in this case, signs a very specific agreement with us as the developers that on that parcel of land, that full parcel, the north parking lot, nothing, in a sense, no changes can be made to the use or structure of that parking lot.
The entire thing.
The entire thing.
Oh, damn.
So in essence,
I thought maybe they were going to carve out something.
no.
Like,
So in
make
essence,
sure you have access to it or something.
no. So in essence, the 88 stalls has to remain as is, and that's for the next 30 years.
Interesting.
It's great. It works for us, right? It offers
Sure.
the security that we feel comfortable continuing to do the project. In my mind, was it the best option for the city?
So
Maybe
now
not,
your
but-
residents that park there, they'll find a spot anywhere in that lot, basically. Then?
Yes.
There's not
So
something.
it's a full public lot still, right? So nothing
So
changes
nothing's
as far
actually
as the public.
dedicated.
Correct.
To your
Yes.
tenants. It's just, hey, you can park anywhere in this lot.
Yes. Essentially, what it does is it protects us and our investments,
Yeah.
so that if it's the next council or whatever might come through, the next developer can't set up.
Is that a lot though that they have to move every so often or not?
What do you mean move?
I don't know. Is that a lot? I mean, some lots, I don't know. I've never parked in that lot, but some lots like you can.
Oh, you
can
mean as
park
far
here
as
for
the-
24 hours.
Correct.
Or
That's all part of the agreement as well. So they can't, for example, go and change it to 15-minute parking only in all the stalls.
So what is it now?
Overnight, up to 48 hours overnight parking.
Okay.
So we just need to make sure it stays overnight parking.
Yeah.
Right. So residents can use it as it is right now and
Yeah.
has been used for some time.
Yeah.
So it's just maintaining that it basically stays the way that it is. And again, for us, the concern was that if that ever gets developed, if a developer wants to come up and put a 4-unit up, whatever they want to do, or new commercial buildings, what do we do?
And nobody can get rid of that deed.
Correct.
The deed restriction. I mean,
Correct.
that's just set in stone.
Yes. And that had
What
to
if
be
you
set.
agreed? Do you have to sign anything for that, or
Correct.
Just,
Yep. So
you
we're in
have to-
agreement with the
you're
city
in
of Stoughton.
agreement with the
Yep.
city of Stoughton.
So we have certain things that we've got to keep on our end.
So the only people that you and them could come together and say, okay, this is no more.
That's the only way it can be.
If both of you,
Correct. We both have to
or
agree.
the next owner of the building,
Or the
If they
next
buy-
owner of the
if
building.
someone buys it
Correct.
from you,
So
it
it's
would go with the building.
transferable with the building, right?
Gotcha.
And that was important, from a lending perspective.
Yeah.
From a
Well,
security
and for
side.
an exit standpoint, you
Exactly.
need to make sure that's going to still be in place.
Exactly.
Because if I'm going to come buy this from you or something in 5 years or whatever,
Yes.
right? Then I want the parking too.
Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
yeah.
And that was very important to us to make sure that was written in there as well,
Makes sense.
right? So if they wanted the deed restriction to expire upon us having to sale or whatever it might be, that wasn't going to fly from a financing
Right.
side, because what if the project doesn't work out, right?
Yeah.
And the bank or whoever holds interest in this property wants to get their money back.
Yeah.
Well, if you say that we're pulling parking from you as soon as this thing goes to
Yeah.
just hands, that devalues that building considerably. So the bank or any lenders, anybody with a financial interest in this building is not going to want to do
Yeah.
that. So that was a big piece of the negotiations, is making sure that this was
Yeah.
that ran concurrent with the property.
Yeah. And then whoever owns it in year 24, 25, 26, and 27, those years they might want to start to have conversations
They'll have
with the city.
conversations, yes.
Yeah.
Who knows where we're going to be in
Yeah,
year
yeah,
24,
right,
25,
right,
26.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
but-
as long as we got it through the amortization of the loan, it
Yeah.
was.
Well, I was looking at a deal up in La Crosse that had a attached parking garage, and it was in a condo because the city owned the parking garage, and it was attached, so it was in a condo situation, and that was also where the apartments had. It was like I think it was initially a 30-year, but it was built in 1999 or 2002, so that was coming up in like 2032.
Yeah.
So that was already something I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, well this is a.
Gotta make sure you look out for those.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Sneak a
So-
bite in the butt.
After that parking thing again, that took us quite a time through the city, and I understand all the concerns about it.
For
And
sure.
it was
Yeah.
it was another fun learning experience in how to.
It's crazy though, because like when you this is the thing about real estate or just anyone that's like successful, there's always going to be something that pops up that you never like when you were first looking at a building, like, oh yeah, I'm excited about this, and you were at your first like obstacle we were talking about before to overcome. Did you ever imagine that parking was going to be the thing that
There was 30 things I never imagined. There were things that pop
there's
up.
always things that pop up.
Yes.
You always worried about all these things, they never actually end up happening.
Correct.
And it's the thing that you overlooked or never thought of are the ones
Yep.
that end up being the sticking point that always happens.
No, but I mean, it was a good experience, right? And it gives you the opportunity to work with a municipality, city council, planning
Yeah, for
commission,
sure.
right? Having gone through that the first time, there's going to be concerns brought up on most every project, and you have to learn how to navigate those, right?
Mhm.
You can't just go in and demand what you want and have a bad attitude. You have to be willing and open-minded to work with those officials and those community members to try to come up with a solution that works for all parties. As soon as you go in there with the wrong attitude, you're just not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, I commend the city of Stoughton. They were, as many hurdles as we had to go through and much time we spent, I was thankful that we were all able to come to an agreement that it seems like worked for all parties.
Yeah. So, where are you at in this project right now?
So right now, we got the first and second floors basically completely demoed out.
So when did demo start?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago right now.
Yep.
Demo's pretty much done.
Demo's
but there was
pretty
all
much
wide
done.
open anyways. What were you demoing?
Oh, there was there's actually in there quite a bit of structures, kind of makeshift offices, drywall, carpet, some cement structures, some stairwells. There's actually, on the other side of this, there's a ramp that goes from the first floor up to the second floor.
Maybe after this we'll run over there.
Yeah. There's a huge ramp in there right now that used to drive cars up from the first floor to the second floor. And then next to the ramp, there's an old car lift, an old pulley lever car lift that used to lift cars up. We're actually going to reutilize that in the community room.
Oh,
It's
sweet.
going to look pretty cool. But there was more than you think to demo.
Yeah.
Up in the ceilings, there was a lot of stuff up there.
Okay.
So it's basically cleaned out at this point. We're going to start cutting concrete, is my understanding, and drawing off for framing, hopefully later this week or early next week.
Making you put an elevator in this thing?
Nope, no elevator.
That's good.
So ADA units will be accessible. We have 4 units on the back side of this picture. That'll be the ADA accessible units.
4 total ADAs.
Correct, which meets
All ones or a combination?
Ones, yeah.
All ones.
So as we meet all the requirements for ADA accessibility, which means we don't have to put an elevator.
That was probably required. Oh,
Correct.
that's required. So then now you don't have to put the.
Exactly.
It wasn't required, but if you didn't do that, then you'd have to put an elevator.
If you
in?
didn't have ADA accessible units, you would have to have an elevator. A
Interesting.
certain
All
number.
right.
Yeah.
Got it.
And as
Makes
you know, in a
sense.
project like this, if we had to do an
Elevator
elevator,
would blow it up.
blow the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Plus, you'd just
It's
be
probably-
disqualified for any
Probably
historical.
120
Exactly.
grand.
Yep, and no historical option. Yeah.
Elevators suck. There's
Yep.
a project I bought down in Janesville. The old cotton mills, actually, there's an elevator in there, and we ended up having to do a remodification on that. And that was 110. It was a 3-story thing, 110 grand out. And I'm like, God damn it! I did not see that coming.
How'd you
know?
feel about that?
I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was pissed.
And you had
pissed
no
off.
option, though.
Yeah,
You
I was
just
pissed
have to
off.
do it.
And like it passed kind of the inspection, but
Yeah.
it's just like some of those things when it's time, and like
Yeah.
sometimes it's unlucky, and it wasn't even that old. It just but it is what it is, and elevators are.
It's one of the risks.
Yeah. So demo's going right now. What's the next step then?
So next
Start
step,
to cut holes in the concrete for what?
yeah. So we're keeping the concrete floors on the first floor
Okay.
exposed. We're gonna do some refinishing.
Is that where the travertine?
Yep.
travertine
So
is?
that travertine floor is up at the front. It only takes up maybe 10% of the whole first floor.
All right.
1,000
And
square
there's
feet.
not any on the second floor.
Not any on the second floor. Second floor is all wood.
Just the first floor. Got
So
it.
the first floor is going to be natural cement floor. We're going to clean it up a little bit,
Yeah.
but we're able to keep that cement floor in place. Historical loves that aspect of keeping that exposed. So
Just
we
in
have
the
to cut
common areas
in all of it.
and in the
Correct.
units.
Yep.
Okay.
So one of the interesting things about the tax credits is you essentially can't use LVP.
Gotcha.
Not
yeah.
allowed.
Well, that makes sense. The Monterey
Yep.
apartments that were done down in Janesville. I don't know if you paid attention to that at all or not. It was a historical hotel,
Yep.
6, 7, 10 stories tall, whatever. Same thing.
Yep.
But it looks great. I mean,
It's gonna look
they
really
got the polished
Yeah.
polished
Yep.
concrete up and
There's
whatever. It looks
a lot
great.
of ways you can clean it up, and make it
Yeah,
look nice.
and I mean, like residents might like, oh, concrete floors, but like it like you can throw rugs down. You can,
Yes.
it'll be sweet. Yeah.
But that's the look we're going for, right?
Yeah,
So
it'll
we
be
have
sweet.
that industrial modern look, so
Yeah.
that feeds into that.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to add a really nice, unique look to the entire building.
Second floor is concrete as well.
Second floor is wood.
Wood. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to refurbish that wood, or like what do you got to do with the wood?
So we got conditionally approved, right? So we can't do LVP. So we have 2 options through the historical tax credit, whoever has the SHPO and NPS in this case. We found one piece of wood that we could use, is what my GC told me. We could use an engineered wood, or we could refurbish the current wood floors. So if we were going to replace them, we could not use LVP. We either had to use standard wood, or we could use this engineered wood. But it had to match, to the best of our ability, the color, grain pattern, and specifically the size of board.
Oh, interesting.
And these are in the 1920s.
Yeah,
So that became a bit of a challenge.
for sure.
So we were able to source, when we got our construction bids back, really find one piece of wood that would work for that. And it was very
That
expensive.
didn't blow up the budget, or it hit it a little bit.
It hit it, yes.
Yeah.
Very expensive. And so after we got everything cleaned out and demo was done, we took some flooring professionals through there and we walked it. And the wood it's 100 years old. It's beat up. And there's a lot of spots that need repair. And that's how we kind of got, in working with SHPO and MPS, approval to replace it with a like wood, engineered wood. We're walking through, and maybe we can salvage a lot of it and maybe use less engineered wood.
Yeah,
So maybe 1 or 2 units have the engineered wood.
cool.
And we run the rest of the natural wood through. But he went in there and cleaned it up a little bit. And it's actually, in his opinion, in really, really good shape.
Sweet.
So we're really excited about that we might be able to salvage most or some mixing and matching all of the second floor with a natural wood that's going to be totally refinished, a clear lacquer they'll let us do, so really make it look nice.
Come out to about the same budget wise, or
Well, we'll save some money on that.
save a little bit.
If we're able to do it that way, yep.
So what concrete you
In
cutting?
theory.
Because the top floor's wood.
Second,
The-
whole first floor is going to be cutting into trenching concrete
Oh yeah.
for
okay,
all of
so
the plumbing. Yep.
Yeah, plumbing. And any electrical runs through that, or is that all walls? or
All
where's that?
electrical is going to be exposed.
Okay, makes
So
sense.
the conduit against the wall, conduit, HVAC as well, and that adds to the look of what we're looking for in that building, right? So we want to have those exposed vents going
exposed
through.
ventilation.
We
and
like the look of the exposed.
Is it central air, central heat, or is it electric baseboard, or
Both.
okay?
So
it's supplemental.
Supplemental. Yep, the electrical baseboard heat's going to be the supplemental source, just because that building is quite old. You have the exposed brick that we want to maintain, so we need to make sure that we provide.
You have any renderings of what the finishes and
Not
stuff
yet.
look like?
Not yet. So we're getting to the process of finalizing our finishes.
Yeah.
Cabinetry. This is where we're going to involve the wives.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So which will be fun.
That's why
but
my wife's practice looks better than where I'm at because we just threw it up.
I know
and
who
we'll
did the
get some
decorating
art.
in
We'll
here.
get some arts, yeah, and then we'll get some art set up. But my wife's is a lot better.
Yeah, no,
And
it's the
that's-
same in our house. I have no ability for that.
Yeah.
But for us, for Dustin and I think the only look that we were really going to decide on is we got the brick's a light color, so we just want the beams to be a nice black, black running through with the pendant lights fixtures black as well.
Yeah.
The girls can do
everything
the
else.
rest.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to have those soon because we're looking to start marketing this and
Go to Jake. Pull up the renderings.
Yeah, we do have some.
Couple exterior
Yep.
rendering. Oh, there's one from the. So you're basically just replacing. So what is that on that?
So you see all these big bay windows here,
Yeah.
right? So the building does not look like that right now. So
So
these
you're gonna be cutting that out. cutting
correct.
that
So
out?
that's another portion of meeting requirements for state and federal
And then
tax
inside
credits.
there is that common areas right inside there.
Nope. So on this one here, this is kind of the back of the building.
Yeah.
That's a unique apartment. So through that big right door on the bottom right there,
Yeah.
the open bay window.
Just direct access to your apartment.
Yes, and it's going to step down into this unit. So this is a fun unit. So there's a room hidden back below this unit.
Yeah. Someone could use it as a gun room.
You can use it for whatever you want. And we didn't know it existed because that place was so packed with stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't know that room existed until about.
So is it gonna be a part of that unit?
Yes.
Cool.
So we found this room that goes underneath the ramp. So behind this whole glass wall right now is a large wooden ramp that goes to the second floor.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's a room below this. So now we can take that whole ramp out
Yeah.
and we gain another 4 feet, down
Mm-hmm.
in that building. So we have a step down into this unit. And then we have enough room going back. This is our lofted unit.
Yeah.
There'll be a staircase going up into a second floor. And by being able to lower it, this is a clever thing that our general contractor found. In this picture, this is an older rendering. You see on the right roof of that building, there's a pop-out.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't know that we could go 4 feet lower into the ground
Hmm.
on this right corner. So we were forced to make clearance heights
Yeah.
for our lofted unit to bump out that ceiling, which was going to be a challenge with historical tax credits.
But now you don't have to.
And now we don't have to.
Yeah.
And now we
Save some money.
save a lot of money not
Yeah.
having to do that. But the reason, because that's going to be a really, really cool room. We ended up, there's 2 brick walls on the side of this room. And then the ramp, right?
Yeah.
So it's a skinny room.
Yeah.
It's a skinny area. And early on in our plan, what do we do with this area? Right? It's just a really kind of doesn't really fit our model we're trying to do right now. It's not real wide. How do we make it spacious? How do we utilize it? Do we just turn this whole thing into the utilities area? I don't think that was going to work, right? We needed to find a way to generate something off of this. So we had a number of different ideas, worked with the engineer, and came up with a really cool idea for this lofted unit. So this unit here is going to turn into one of our larger 1-bedrooms. Ton of space, wraparound kitchen down in the back when you walk in.
Jesus,
Upstairs will have.
You got that for 1,200, 16.
It's gonna
how
be.
much, how much is that?
That one's only gonna be 1,200.
1,200.
So that one might have to readjust. It's gonna be a really, really unique looking room. A second floor, a large second floor. It's got a bedroom. Even on the second floor, you'll have more living room area for seating,
Oh, that's sweet.
TV, walk-in closet, walk-through closet back with the washer and dryer
Sweet.
into the master bathroom. So it's.
So
I
the
think
next big block of black windows and
Yep.
doors, is that another direct access to unit?
it is. Yep.
Gotcha.
So then
Okay.
we've got, you see the 3 doors,
Yeah.
3 more units going in right there. So it's 4
Got
units
it.
total on this
Gotcha.
side.
Where's the parking lot at right here?
Parking
Off
lot,
which side?
we're basically in it right now where this
In the parking lot.
camera's
Okay.
sitting.
Yeah.
So on the right and to your left, there's
Yeah.
some stalls.
Okay.
You see the bay windows. So right, we got 2 bay windows on the bottom, or on this backside.
Mm-hmm.
We got 2 more on the front.
Mm-hmm.
So right now they don't exist in this building,
Mm-hmm.
but there's cutouts for them. So through historical pictures and discussing with SHPO and MPS and our consultant, what these would have been back in the 20s or 30s or 40s would have been commercial windows for retail space.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted them to go back to that,
Yeah.
which adds, it's interesting when you're thinking about how to do this project. Now you're sitting there, well, I got these big bay windows
Yeah.
that what am I going to do with these?
Yeah.
How much are these going to
It's
change?
kind of cool.
The
You're gonna
budget?
bring a lot of light, and it looks sweet here.
And that's how we thought about that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a unique. We want this project to be unique. In
And
every
the
way
lower
it's
ones
unique.
are like blacked out or something, right?
Yes,
Looks
we
like,
can do an opaqueness kind of on the
Yeah.
lower ones just for more
Yeah.
privacy.
Yeah.
And for us, it's a really cool feature.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's a really cool feature to
Yeah, I
have.
think sweet.
A lot of light. We could, if we wanted to do it, we're going to provide blinds. For the brick
Yeah.
walls, and we can invest, or we can make sure we have a nice set of blinds in there to help with any of that. But just the opportunity to have a window like that, I think is going to be a huge feature for a lot of people.
For sure. Go to the next one here. What else we got?
Yeah, why don't you go back to the front? So yeah, you can see here more of the whole bay window. If you look at this building now, it looks nothing like this. It's all blocked off. It's just,
Yeah.
to open this whole thing up, how much natural light we're going to get in there. So, we'll go through the renderings of this, but you see all the cutouts of all these windows right now on the front and the back and the sides,
Yeah.
where we got really fortunate. Trying to rehab a commercial building into a residential building is very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
Very few would ever qualify, right? Just the way that they were built and constructed are not conducive to do that. But it's difficult to do. When you throw on top of that tax credits, SHPO, NPS,
For sure.
and trying to merge that with it,
Yeah.
and the additional
It's a mess.
hurdles you have to get a little bit lucky. So there's a lot of times we got real lucky with this project. So that
Well, you bash your head against the concrete on some stuff,
Yes.
right? But then you're gonna get some luck too. But that's a part of, again, showing up and just going through it. Now some people are gonna call you lucky, but they didn't see all the other bullshit they had to go
Correct.
through to get to the spot where you get some luck.
so the lucky part is we can't really remove or create new openings. If you want state and federal tax credits, right? They want those to remain exactly as they would have been originally. Same with any
But it
hallways.
looks like you're adding openings here.
We're not.
So these are already all kind of open, just
Correct.
with other.
This-
It's just not it's that vinyl stuff that
Yes.
was shown up before.
So
Yeah.
all these cutouts that
Yeah.
are in the building right now,
Yeah.
and these pictures, are framed and cut out as
Yeah,
it
and then-
currently exists.
Yeah.
They've just been blocked with plywood or whatever it
Yeah,
might
right
be,
there.
or
Yeah. So if you
vinyl.
bring
Yes.
up. Yeah. So all that vinyl then
Correct.
becomes. Yeah, that's sick. That's awesome.
So all the windows you can see all the, even the side views in the front. It was instrumental that the amount of windows and where they were placed was perfect for us because we can't add or take away.
Yeah. So on the first floor right here, how many units are facing us on the first floor with windows?
So this will be two bedrooms. So this is on the left side is the part of a 2-bedroom, and on the right side is another 2-bedroom. So 2 bedrooms facing those windows. That one up in the right corner will be probably the gem of the room. It's going to be a really nice room.
That's the community room that you're
Nope.
looking at? Or
On the second
that's-
floor?
Yeah.
That'll be a 2-bedroom room.
2-bedroom. Gotcha. Okay.
But there's a lot of windows in that one, looking over the river. Perfect spot.
Oh yeah, that's right. You got yeah.
The bottom right with all the bay windows. That's
So
the
wait, where
community
we're
room.
standing at right now, are we by like Ben's restaurant or whatever behind us?
Yes, we're right on
Okay.
Ben's restaurant right
Yeah.
now. Yep. So that front right portion with those bay windows will be the community room.
Yeah.
So that's going to have a ton of light coming into it. Beautiful room. I'm kind of glad that we are turning that into a community room.
Yeah.
Right. It opens up the building a
Wait,
little
which
bit.
one's the community room?
Bottom right.
Bottom right.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Surrounded by all the bay windows.
Yeah, that makes sense for the bottom right to be a community room because the windows face another way. You kind of have an alley, and
Correct.
So it's a good spot.
And that's where the travertine floor is.
Gotcha.
So we have to keep
Yeah.
that wide open.
What all are
to
you
an
gonna have
extent.
in that room?
So right now the plan is we've got some plans. We want some workstations in there, right? So we're gonna have a little area for workstations. We have a vestibule that comes in that's for the package area. So we have indoor package drop off, which was important to us.
Yep.
An area for that.
Yeah.
We're thinking taking
Packages are a nightmare in
yes.
real estate, by the way. In
Correct.
residential, multifamily real estate, freaking packages are a nightmare.
And that's one of the interesting things with all these little things that we go through with the SHPO and NPS is
Yeah.
they tell us they want the travertine floor exposed. Great, no structures built on it, but it's not that easy.
Right.
So that's our main entrance.
Yeah.
What do we do with packages, for example?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got to go back to SHPO and NPS and your consultant and say, here's what we want to do and why.
Yeah.
And then you have to wait for their response.
What'd they say?
So we're still we think they're going to say yes.
Gotcha.
So kind of how this whole
Don't want to F up your
this is why if you're going to do this, you have to have a consultant.
There,
You just have to.
yeah.
So we run everything we want to do by her, and she kind of acts as if, and she used to work for Shippo, so she plays that role with us. Where it ain't going to happen, or okay, we got to find something else to get back.
Yeah.
It's a give and take. How do we sell this
to
the approver? So again, we had to keep doing that give and take throughout the whole thing. And it was interestingly enough, they told us that we had to get rid of this unit and open it up. This was the same time that our GC found a number of ways to save money, one of which included not popping out that roof, which we were already conditionally approved for. So we could give that back. Another part of this was since we changed this to a community room, these units on the left side of the picture we're looking at originally had outdoor entrances. As you can see the railing there with the pathway.
Yeah.
Since we changed that to a community room, we felt much more comfortable moving them into indoor access, right? So they had access to the community room as well. So that saved us for 3 cutouts into the brick that we would have had to have made.
So then they gave you
that were conditionally approved. So when we go back and say, we really want this, and in return,
we'll give up this.
I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that game.
But you don't know for sure yet. You're waiting to hear back.
And I mean, we don't know for sure, but with our consultant, we get some sense of
how'd you those going back to the tax credits now? So you used a broker to sell those off? So you don't know who you actually sold them to?
Correct.
Right? Gotcha. So just use a broker, and then you pay the broker something, or someone pays the broker something. Does the buyer or seller pay the broker? Or we pay it on both ends.
We do, but it was far less expensive than anticipated.
Yeah. What it was like a percentage?
It ended up being, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000.
So percentage.
Yeah.
What was the percentage ballpark, or what was the percentage? Like 4% or 20% or?
No, it'd be by about less than that, 4 or 5%.
4 or 5%. Oh, so my $100,000 example was pretty close.
Yes, it was inexpensive.
Nice. Yeah. But $100,000 in tax credits, right? Because I use that as an example.
For our project?
Yeah.
A little more than that.
A little more than that?
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. So there's your community room. Okay, so you're going to have office workstations. You're going to have a package room. Anything else?
And I think there's a lot of things we can do with that area, and it may change over time, right? So we thought about, fitness area, some other amenities, right? But right now I think we want to turn that more into a lounge area, put a nice TV in there. So part of the car lift that we found has these 2 beautiful wooden beams that connect this whole structure. We're going to take that down, put that on the wall with a nice TV in it.
Cool.
Get some nice couches. Again, if we can continue to drive those early professional, early career people into our downtown, I'd like it to be accessible to meet other people, a place to bring in your friends, right? Smaller units, so if you want to bring friends over, you have an opportunity to bring friends over and
golf
somewhere to
simulator
go.
in there, man.
Now we're getting out of budget.
That's sweet. So what's the construction timeline? When's this thing supposed to be wrapped up, and when do you guys start leasing and all that?
So we're expected to be able to deliver the project July 1st.
July 1st, 2025.
Correct.
And we're at, right now we're early November.
Yeah.
So
About
9 months
Yep.
away to get it done. And this is how many square feet again? 13?
Just about 13,000.
13,000. So about the size building that we're sitting in right now.
Yep.
So cool. All right.
So we're looking forward to that. I'm going to start, another part of this is, and I kind of missed this as part of our setup to the property itself, is we brought in a property manager that we know, 10 years of experience, professional, who also has, the desire to kind of do his own thing or start his own thing, right? So he's got a small part of equity in the building itself. He put in some cash. He gets a position in the building.
That's smart.
And then we, 3 of us.
Because this is the thing I tell people all the time. Like, if you're not going to have your own property management company, you're going to use third party. I mean, nobody cares about the property as much as the owners do.
Correct.
Right? So it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool how you went and did that. You found someone that wants to go.
Yep.
So the guy doesn't have anything so far. This is like his first investment.
This is his first investment.
So this is his first investment. He's just getting started.
Yep.
And you're like, well, I'm not going to just let you manage it, but hey, if you're invested, now it's like he's incentivized, right?
He's got
ownership
together.
in it.
Exactly.
Right?
So we're all in this together. How we perform our success is all tied to each other.
Yeah.
Right. So he's got skin in the game.
Yeah. Which is sweet, because if in the leadership role at our company now, they're getting some equity in our deals going forward here. So, we have kind of the same mindset behind that.
And so we're going to be starting our own property management company, right? We're all third owners, right? And that was important to me to do that, because if we have success in the property management, if we continue to scale, I didn't want to miss out on that opportunity of the property management side of it as well, right? Not my primary focus right now, I'm not looking to grow a property management company.
Yeah.
But let's say we continue to scale.
Yeah.
And that becomes something.
Yeah.
Is a way to protect the ownership in us on the backside.
For sure.
Should that continue to grow, and a lot of upside potential as well.
Yeah.
So that was I think a pretty good move on our part to get that going.
That makes sense. What do you see there? What do you think? We got 7-8 months. This thing's open, right? How long do you think it'll take to lease up?
I'm hoping 2 months before we open.
Okay, so when do you start pre-leasing?
We're gonna start pre-leasing probably in January, February.
Yeah,
in that time frame, right before the prime leasing season, to try to get some interest in it.
Okay.
As leases come up, we're working on interior renderings. We're gonna put some pamphlets together. Maybe have some discussions with the downtown local businesses on maybe some things that we can offer and make it a little more exciting for those that would move into the downtown area. So we've got some ideas. The intent would be to pre-lease the entire thing by May. If we could.
Makes sense. What do you think? What risks do you still have out there? On this? What could go wrong?
It's hard to say being my first development project.
Yeah.
I do lose a lot of sleep at night. The first big concern was the ephes on the outside of that building. That was just kind of attached by the city in 1994 or 5.
Oh, that recent. Got it.
Why did they attach it was the question.
You didn't know if it was something structural or something?
I couldn't say for sure that it wasn't.
And is that gone now or not?
It is gone.
Okay. So
and we're out of the woods on that.
All right, there you go.
But that was a lot of sleepless nights, and I thought for sure that utilities would have done that for insulation reasons, especially blocking all the windows. That was my hope.
Yeah.
But I couldn't know for sure, and the city didn't know. Utilities didn't know. So I brought one of the subcontractors on that's doing the masonry. I have a good relationship with. So I brought him out there a couple times to just kind of look for us, before we got real deep into this. He was very impressed with the quality of the brick, at least from the inside. He went through, I had inspectors and looking at the flooring to make sure there's no cracks indicating the building is shifting. Everything he saw, the inspectors, they, confirmed to the best of their ability that the brick was going to be in really good condition. The ephes was wrapped in a way that it was capped and wrapped, so no moisture got back there. So there was alleviated enough concern to continue to kind of not worry about that stopping the project.
But you didn't really truly know.
I didn't know if there's going to be, $50,000 in masonry work or $500,000.
Right. Yeah.
Until we got that ephes off.
But you did enough to have a good to have at least like a 60% to 75%. Like, okay,
Yes.
I'm 75% confident this is way closer to 50 than it is.
I brought
500.
people that knew a lot more than I do, that I trusted, to come in and give me their opinion, so that I could feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, makes sense. And then it's just the odds game.
Exactly.
And that's where you're like, you got to weigh your risk reward.
Everything's a calculated risk.
Yeah, risk reward, and you try to do what you can do and try to figure it out. And but then and then the chips will fall.
So it's nice to have that off my plate. I'll put it that way.
For sure.
All sorts of things.
So are there any other things like that yet that are still sitting out there? And now that you're demoed, not too much.
In my mind, not too much.
Yeah.
I don't know what else could go really wrong structurally, right? So we've been through all that. That's always the biggest concern, is structurally.
Right.
What it was going to cost me $500,000.
Right. Yeah.
I believe all those are off the table at this point. So now we're just talking the little things, right? So as we get into the plumbing and the electrical and the HVAC, the big thing here is normally those, once you have the plan, it goes smoothly, right? Any little error in any of that stuff now, basically I've got to rerun by historical and make sure it's okay.
Yeah.
So inevitably,
Which slows you down. So right now, your biggest risk is probably the timeline.
Yes. My biggest concern
which is always construction.
Correct.
But
so, when these little things inevitably pop up, how do we have to handle those? And how far do I have to go to get the approvals that I need to make sure that they stay on track?
And how long will it take? Yeah.
And how long will it take?
Yeah. Got it. Cool, man. Well, that's freaking awesome. I'm excited to see this.
What do you think
done.
about the project?
What do I think about this?
Yeah.
I think it's sweet. Just from seeing the renderings and stuff, I think it's awesome. I mean, I think it's good for downtown. I think anything, again, like to just like clean up something and utilize something. I mean, look at, like we were talking about, it's the housing issue, to be able to see a building like this that's just underutilized, not being used, somewhat of a, I mean, not necessarily a complete eyesore, but just like not being used.
That's good. You can put that. I'm not offended.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know your partners might be, or your dad might be, but your partner's dad might be, but I mean, like, not necessarily an eyesore, but it's also not something like when you're seeing these renderings here, like that's a big improvement to like one 70 feet off Main Street, right? It's a big improvement. So I think it's sweet, and I think what you're doing is awesome. And I hope that you're rewarded well for it, and I hope it goes good for you, and I hope it goes smooth, and I hope it's a successful project for you. So it's awesome.
How was your first development project?
Well, I've never developed.
That's right. How was your first big risk? I put it that way in real estate.
First big risk. I mean, I don't know. Like, obviously the first project that I bought was a 4 unit. I didn't really see much risk there because it was cash flow positive day one. The second one, same thing. I think the first one where I really kind of questioned it was the storage unit deal, which actually Dan Carey was the one that he financed that for us, and the risk was there was no actual, like, he didn't have any income statements at all. His rent roll was messy. I mean, he was just like on a piece of cardboard, like, and there's no tax returns to show what the income was. There was no income statement. And so basically I had to go through that and basically go through and count all the units, right? And figure out how many they were and kind of guesstimate on, okay, probably the sizes even on some of them. And I just kind of took inventory of the units that I had, and then I went and ran comps.
That's very similar to this.
Then that's what I did. And it's like, but I didn't have, so I took that to Dan, and if I didn't there's other people that just rejected me on that. So I don't think, if I didn't previously have the relationship with Dan, I don't know that he would have done it, but he really trusted me in that project. And obviously we blew it away, right? But we didn't for sure know what we were walking into. I felt like what you just said about, doing as much due diligence as you could. That's what I feel like I did. I feel like I did as much due diligence as I could. I knew what other storage units were going for, and I knew that in that market, it was really hard to find storage units even. And so I'm like, we're buying this at a price that even at, 70%, whatever it was at the time, 75% occupied, we're making money on it and paying the debt and making money. And I'm like, and that was why it was crucial for me. And as a part of that deal, we started actually marketing those units. We got the permission from the seller to start marketing those units even before we owned it through due diligence. And I just said, look, you don't have to pay me anything. Like, if I fill this unit right now, you keep all the money on it until we close. You don't have to pay me anything. It's just going to be an added benefit for once we do close. And he was like, yeah, sure. So by the time we closed, we were actually like, because this is how in demand the market was, we were actually like 93% occupied or something. So like basically the day we closed, in my mind, like we bought it for like 1.25 or something like that, 1.2. And in my mind, it was worth like 1.5, 1.6 or more. And then ultimately, we refinanced that, 6 or 7 months after we bought it, refinanced it out, didn't have to put any more cash in for the second storage unit location. And we just kept rolling forward and
that's so important. You hit on a lot of points that really resonated with me, and that just, you're confident, right, in yourself and your abilities. And you do the due diligence. And you can take that leap. You can convince 100%. Yourself that it's worth it.
100%.
And a lot of, even I went through this being the first development project, there's a lot of times where you have maybe that imposter syndrome, right? Or that fear of, is what I'm doing actually right?
For sure.
Is this going to work out?
For sure.
And I have a lot of sleepless nights over that over the past 2 years. And those thoughts come into your mind, and all of a sudden you're rolling around in bed for 6 hours writing pro formas in my head.
100%.
Literally doing it.
Been there.
And then you have to take a step back and get yourself out of that zone and say, listen, I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I did all of the back end work, right? I put all the due diligence in. These are all the reasons why I think it's going to work. I just need to trust what I'm doing and trust myself, and I can make it work. But it's interesting. I assume you had nights like that.
Yeah, I mean, I still, it's when we close the deal now, I don't really lose as much sleep. It just kind of we close on refinances or acquisitions so frequently that most of that's gone. But I mean, like you do it enough, you do start to realize, oh, I am wrong sometimes. Right now, it's been very few times, but there's projects that we've got 2 projects. Out of we've had, I don't know, 10 to 15 projects go completely full cycle, crushed projections, not even close. Like everything else that we own right now is on a great path, but we got 2 projects, that we're kind of taking one on the chin on. And I think like one of them's going to end up all right, one of them not so much, but that sometimes that happens, right? Now I did learn a lot through those, right? And so it's stuff that I pay attention to and think, I don't think that same mistake will be repeated again. But yeah, you do enough, at some point you're going to miss just a little bit. But ideally, if you do those should be just small, minor issues in a big grand scheme.
That's the cost of doing business, though, as well. Sure. So when you get to a level of success that you're at now, you need to take more risk. You need to be willing to take certain risks. Your risk
Yeah.
tolerance increases, right?
Yeah.
You got a little more room potentially for
Yeah.
error. And if you want to keep expanding and progressing, you got to take risks all
Yeah.
the way through this. So you're
Yeah.
going to lose a few.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is, and you brought up your warehouse project, and for me, this one is the importance of the first project.
Yeah, for sure.
And you alluded
Yeah.
to how your warehouse rolled into so much more.
Yeah, I mean
And
we sold that, turned into the 96 unit apartment building. So we got the storage unit property, right? And I owned, a large majority of that deal, but I had like none of my own money in.
Yeah.
Zero. I had zero of my own money in, and sold that. 1031 the funds forward into 96 East.
Yeah.
96 East was 96 units that we bought. And we bought it for $4.75 million. We just did a related transfer. Basically, we kind of recapitalized it with new investors for $8.75 million, right? So I unlocked a lot of equity there, but I put a lot of money back into the deal, and now we're actually doing a rehab project that should take the value of that property up to $14 million over the next, 13 to 14 million over the next, year and a half, 2 years here.
And that's not easy to do.
So that one, overcoming some of those fears and questions, that's now potentially parlayed into a $0 investment, just a lot of time, effort, energy. $0 investment in when we closed the storage units, 2015, I think, 2015 or 2016. By the time we hit 2026, we'll have parlayed into potentially, it's already parlayed into a couple million. It'll parlay into potentially $5, $6, $7 million.
And that is a ton of time, effort, money, and sacrifice. And the other thing is risk.
Yeah, for sure.
So a lot of people don't understand the risk that goes into these things. This project, for example, if this one doesn't pan out, and hopefully not, but if it goes south, right? I'm starting my life over with a young child,
right.
And even from the real estate perspective, that really kind of excludes you from getting back into that game or delays your timeline considerably.
Yeah.
And so that's it's
yeah.
There's a lot of risk that goes into it, a lot of thought that has to go into it.
That's why I think it's smart what you're doing with the property manager. I think like what you said before, I'm kind of surprised. We thought it'd be like, okay, start construction, see you later once it opens. But like, don't do that. Stay on top of this. Drive that thing, get that.
I go there every day.
Keep the pace going.
Yeah.
And then just again, do everything that you can control. And there's a lot of things that are out of control too. But anything that you can control, make sure you focus on that and focus on all those things you can control. And then the chips will fall where they're going to fall. But, again, the look of this building, I think is sweet. I think it's needed. I think it's in an awesome spot. I think it's going to be attractive for, the types of people that you're going to be going after. And they're right by a lot of cool things that downtown Stoughton has going for it, with numerous restaurants and bars and other shops and stuff like that. And I think it's you're still only 15 minutes from downtown. And,
you're involved now in the Stoughton market quite a bit. Obviously, your business is here, your wife's business is here.
Yeah.
Let's talk a macro level versus just the project itself. What do you think about the Stoughton market right now?
I think when we built this building out, I told my wife, I said, if we're smart here, what we should do is, I'm willing to take my floor, because she's down below us in this office that we're talking in, and that was her second dental location, Dane Dental, and I'm on the second floor. And so what I told her is, I said, look, I'm at some point going to outgrow this. So I'm either going to need to find a second spot and we'll have to have two campuses or whatever it might be. And I said, or what we could do is, you kind of floor plan this second floor out to a floor plan that you kind of need, so that there's less even demo and stuff for you to do. So you could jump up here. Well, she laughed at me for that. So she said, no, I'm not. I'm just worried about my first floor right now. And I'm never, or whatever. Well, it's off to a great start down there. Right. And so I think, and that's just a long way of me saying, I think that Stoughton's going to blow up, like in a good way, like in a big way over the next, look at when you look at Madison, the west side is so built out. And obviously there's still McFarland. I just think McFarland and Stoughton are going to have a huge opportunity to grow.
I agree.
And so, because again, when you start to look at the west side and that Middleton, you're starting to get really pushed out there because there's just so much development going on. So I just think that opportunity, kind of almost what's happened to Sun Prairie a little bit, which has really blown up over the last 12 years or so. Maybe the last 15 years. I don't know exactly when that started, but I could see some of that stuff starting to happen in McFarland and Stoughton, and I don't know that it ever gets to the point where it's like Sun Prairie blowing up.
Yeah, but find a nice middle ground in there.
Yeah, but I think I definitely think it's a good thing for Stoughton long term, and like you said, hopefully with the schools and they can figure out some of those, because I know there's been some problems and stuff like that, but hopefully they can figure some of those things out. But I think, long term. And so, I mean, with me saying, hey, my wife should be thinking about like future growth because that's what I think is going to happen with Stoughton. I think Stoughton's going to grow. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Again, we're so close to Madison.
It's a perfect spot.
Yeah.
Yep. We got everything.
Still close to, we're close to interstate here.
Yep.
We're close to Madison. We're in a good spot. So that's what I think. And I think your timing on it's good. And I think the next 10 years is going to be, it's going to be a good thing for Stoughton.
That's what my research told me too.
Yeah.
How about Dane County as a whole? Is there other areas that you...
I think my struggle right now with like the Madison market is, and Dane County is, again, we don't need to get into too much politics. I think people know where I stand with that if you follow me, and I don't want to drag you into it because I catch a lot of crap for it. But, I think politically what my hesitation is with Dane County is how liberal it can be and how hard it can be to, do certain things. And if people aren't paying rent and all that stuff and, some of the challenges there. And so, that's why I've really been open to like, going further. I mean, we've bought a lot in Lake Delton area, Wisconsin Dells and Mauston and Walworth County, Waukesha County. We've been buying a lot in. It's just, still a little bit more friendly than some of the things that are going on in Madison, with Madison being almost like Madison's a mini San Francisco from a political standpoint. And whether it's good or bad or whatever, I just think I'm stating a fact. And it can be challenging from a business standpoint, I think. But there's growth, and it's a place people are still moving to, and there's a lot of businesses there. So I don't know what the right thing is, but, I've sold more assets in Madison and Dane County over the last, 2 years than I've bought.
So, what do you think about looking just outside Dane County? So that's kind of where my mind goes right now as I think about potential next projects. Mm-hmm. You think about Sauk City is kind of getting a little bit out there, Watertown, kind of out in those markets. Do you think
we just bought a deal in Watertown. I look at the demographics there. I think that's a great spot. Walworth County, we love Walworth County. We've got a lot in Elkhorn and just all across. We got like 450 units or whatever in Walworth County. So we think that's a great spot, and I think there's more opportunity in the Dells and
the Dells is interesting.
Lake Delton and those areas in Wisconsin. I like
Watertown. I mentioned this to you sometime back, was something I liked a lot. So Dustin and I actually spent quite a bit of time in Watertown a few months back. Met some people and
demographics great.
We did. I mean, they are probably the crown jewel of historical buildings down there. You've gone through.
They've got a ton. They've got
6 Stoughton main streets with those buildings down there. Yeah. And so we explored a few of them, and I think maybe we'll have to revisit this at some point. But we walked through a handful of them with some city officials. That the good thing about Watertown is they really want to push development there right now. Yeah. If you look at their plans, they have really wonderfully drawn out plans to really drive a lot of development in that area over the next 3 to 5 years is their plan. Right. So I see a lot of potential in that area. And as we continue to look at areas that might be on the precipice of expanding, one I think is Stoughton. Where might that next one be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you look at a lot of the demographics though, in a lot of these towns in Wisconsin. I mean, they're still growing.
They are.
Yeah. I mean, so I think there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, the places that I have like stayed away from. There's been a couple towns that are anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000, 3,000 to 15,000. But it's like one in particular that I looked at. I think there was like 5,500, but they had like a foundry, and it was kind of like the Fox Valley area. And I'm like, and that was like the main employer, like big time. Yeah. Like it was like almost, I would say probably 70%. I'm like, if that thing ever left, like it'd be a mess. Yes. Like, so I try to at least find something that has, again, I'm fine with investing in the smaller towns or whatever that are maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes from, something like a Madison or whatever. I'm totally fine with that, but that just concerned me about this. So some of those I stay away from if they're solely, if they're not like,
if it's very dependent.
And that one's actually probably more like 45 minutes to an hour away from Appleton and, an hour away from Madison, where it's like far enough where it's like, if that one business leaves, that town, like it's going to
crumble.
It's going to completely, yeah. So that's what I'm not as excited about when you look at like Watertown, when you've got like, and again, like Janesville. I mean, one of the best things that happened in Janesville was with GM closing in 08. I mean, is unfortunate, and it affected a lot of my friends' families and all that stuff. But I'm just talking for the actual city of Janesville, it's much more diversified now, and now they're still seeing growth. And so that was actually, I think, a good thing. And so like Janesville, because of, all the growth and all the different businesses that have been able to come in, that's a place that we invest and stuff.
That's been a great area. Beloit's got a lot going into it too.
Yep.
And that's,
Yeah, and Beloit, I managed a building in Beloit, and what I found about Beloit is a little bit different than the bad parts of Beloit can feel a little bit more like Madison versus like, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it was a rough go, and we stopped managing. That was when we were doing some third party management, which we don't do anymore. But, so I think you got, like in Stoughton, you don't really have to worry about block by block as much, really.
Yep.
Right. Like, and Beloit, I think you still would have to, and, but yeah.
So what's your intent to keep scaling?
Well, we're really focused on right now changing a lot of what we do in property management and how things are ran. So we're bringing a lot more things to our corporate office to be able to provide better, stickability or less turnover with our employees. We've found that, being out on an island at a property, there's just more turnover there. Mm-hmm. So we try to keep a lot of the people at service and answer phone calls and emails and texts and whatnot. Try to get them out of this office to keep that have that retention and then we're looking at we completely segregated facilities out of like the operations end of it, meaning like a property manager is not overseeing any service tech or facilities anymore. Okay. So what we're trying to do is like get less KPIs and just have. So a property manager historically would be responsible for 20 things, and they'd manage a 200 unit property or 200 units. So what we're doing now is like have a role that instead of having 20 things to do, they've got 3 to 4 KPIs, but they're servicing 600 or 1,000 units. But they're much more skilled at what they're doing, and so we're really focusing on that whole. And we have for the last year and a half, and we're almost kind of all the way through it now. With some of these things that we're wrapping up, and I think we're going to see a lot of good things happen to our financials, to the goodwill of our name and our reputation because of some of those things. So I'm focused on the operations of that, and I'm focused on going back to some of these buildings where we still can do more from a CapEx standpoint to get our current buildings up to the highest valuation as possible while continuing to acquire. At the same time, we've sold 200 and whatever units in the last about year. Because I was a general partner in those, and that's how I was able to get my equity that was tied up. And so that also taught me something a little bit too with how we're going to restructure these previous deals, but structure deals going forward where there's going to be ways through refinance that I can unlock my equity that I've built as a GP, which I just never thought of before, right? So
part of the game,
because ideally, I wouldn't mind, like there's certain assets that I want to just buy just where it's just me and my family where we never have to sell because like with our current investors, there's an expectation I have to sell. That's why we had a related party transfer on one of these assets where we went out and got some offers and stuff like that. And then we actually were like, well, we'll pay more for this. And, so we paid like $25,000 more than the offer. So I think we could do that more with our own deals to keep them and just own more of them. I think that we're going to, we'll own 30% of these things without investors, as we keep going forward.
You continue to adjust and change your model in ways as you continue to learn.
So, and I've always I've always thrown like a unit count. 20,000, 25,000 units. And to me, like the unit thing, it's really just helps me get more eyeballs. I'm a little bit less concerned with units than what people think. And so for me, it's like, what am I looking for my family? How much cash flow do I need to be able to do that? And then how many units do I need, right? So now, at the same time, like, do I still want to go out and get 20,000 units if I own all of them? Great. I'm like, yeah, because I would love to. I want to buy a pro sports team.
That's my next question.
So like, I want to own a pro sports team. Now, by the time I'm gonna be able to do that, I'm probably going to need probably $25 billion.
So goals got to keep changing,
$30
right?
billion or something.
The type of people that the goal keeps changing, right? When you accomplish a goal, there's a next goal. So what continues to drive you? I like the comment of family because that's that mindset is how I started with mine. It's okay. I've got 17 units. This is for my daughter. This is for her future. How many do I need, right? And that was my mindset, and that was my drive. And for you, some people, I'm the same way. If you get to 20,000 units, right, that's a big thing to show off. So what continues to drive you in scaling this?
I mean, I have fun doing what I'm doing. I have fun doing what I'm doing every day. Right. I mean, like, my thing in life outside of what I do at the office is I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, however I want to do it, for however long I want to do it. And so like, and that takes a lot of resources to do that. And then, if I want to be able to, whether that's, I want to be able to help someone out and at some day, something that I'm super passionate about, be able to write a $2 million check to be able to just take care of some project that they got to take care of. I want to be able to do that. If I want to be able to, you know, we've got 50-50 custody with, you know, our daughter. And, you know, there's times where like vacations, like we're tight on time because of that time frame. Like, well, we need to be able to fly private every single time to be able to truly maximize our time and do what we want to do. Right. Well, that takes money. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that there's a lot of, you know, family type things, but I mean, really like
the opportunity to choose.
Yeah. And I mean, some of my biggest thing is like, if I'm not getting better in everything that I'm doing, and again, that's family, that's, you know, health and wellness, business, that's everything. Then I feel like I'm just, I gotta be closing the gap between where I'm at and my potential is. And then hopefully I keep evolving and my potential keeps expanding so that I can keep going after that.
So let me ask you on more on the personal side of what we're just discussing. How does Jamie feel about that? That mindset.
The mindset?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in on it. Yeah. You know, I mean, like 100%. I think it's really hard to. Now, what like she's not in is like I know how much I can go back and figure out how much we spent on like new furniture or clothes, and like she doesn't like that, right?
I do the same thing.
So like I know, I mean, I can figure it out to the penny. I can pull it up in 5 seconds, and you know, and so, but I mean, like I think, you know, part of it again, you know, you become the people that you're around, and it's really hard, I think. You know, if you don't have people that are supportive in your life, including obviously your family, like that's hard. And like you talked about your parents, it's crazy, dude. Like out of all the podcasts and stuff that we've done and the people that we've had on from this podcast I'm doing now and my previous one, and, you know, other people that there's other successful people, they always talk about their family. Like your dad, you know, I had great parents as well that supported me. So like the more I do this, I'm like, well, how can we give it back so that everyone has a mom and dad that supported them, right? And that, you know, you or I can't necessarily be someone else's father or mother. I think that's a big reason why I coach soccer. Like number one is I like to do it because my daughter's involved, but I view all those kids there as like I get after them and I'm freaking hard on them. But like the cool thing is like I really think that they respect us as coaches, and I really think that they actually want that. They know what the boundaries are, and they know if they step outside that boundary, they're running for it. They know that we're going to hold them accountable. Yeah. And like the way that the world is today is like so much that has gone. Now, hopefully with this presidential election, hopefully a lot of wokeness goes away, because I think at some point in life people are going to have, and I think people have been getting a big wake up call just because of how 8th place trophies shouldn't be a thing, because like the real world is going to kick your teeth in, and that sucks. But so I think that's why I really like coaching soccer, because I'm like if for, you know, the U12, these girls that we've coached for 3 or 4 years now. Like you've seen them evolve. You've seen their attitudes change. I talk about like we're the team that's out there and everyone else has canceled practice. Tell me stories about it. Did I tell you a story? Yeah. We'll be out there and everyone else would have canceled practice because there were storms that came through. And us three as coaches were debating, hey, what should we do? What should we do? And then all of us just get to the same page, say, all right, we're showing up. And so like we're texting all the parents, hey, you know, practice is still on. We'll all just sit in the cars until you know, there's 20 minutes with no lightning, right? So we get up there, it just starts pouring, thundering, lightning. We're like, all right, we're looking at the radar. We'll wait. You know, most people just give up, don't even look at the radar. We're looking at the radar based on the lightning. Lightning's again. All right, we got another 20 or 30 minutes, whatever it was. Well, so then it lightning one more time. So instead of starting practice at 5, all the parents like bought into it too when we sent this text message out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're showing up because that's what we do. So by like practice was supposed to start at 5. I think we started practice like 5:30. Right. But we still got like an hour of practice in because of that. And so I said to that day we came out there, I said, we're practicing. The girls were like, where's everyone else? Why are they not out here? I'm like, well, guess what they didn't do? And they're all like, they didn't show up. And I'm like, what'd you do? Like, we showed up. So like, I tried to, as much as I get on them about things, it's not about the actual soccer. It's about how, again, like sports impacted me, because everything that I've done has come from, again, a good family in sports, right? So maybe one of these girls don't have good support at home. Maybe, you know, sports can be the thing for some of these girls that they realize, oh, wait, I can, just like Coach Justin did, I can apply everything that I learned in sports from him or from other coaches and apply that to real life and find my passion, become a superstar. And if I impact just one of the girls that way, not even multiple, just one, right? Yeah. Then that's awesome.
You're changing mindsets. So, you know, one of the lessons I learned from my father and kind of the saying that I'll never forget is...
And if I didn't have my own business, right, we're like, you know, I didn't control my time or whatever, maybe I wouldn't have the time to do it, the effort, right? So I think a lot of this is also allows me to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what my dad taught me is there's two ways to do things, right? There's the easy way and there's the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And too often we look for excuses to take the easy way
100%.
when we know the right way.
Yeah.
And you just got to commit to it and show up and do it.
Yep.
Instead of making the excuse or using whatever excuse, in this case, storms, to take the easy way.
Yep.
Right. So that's kind of when I come up with different decisions that I try to.
And I'm just I hate it. Like, there's a snowstorm coming here in Wisconsin next week. And people are like, oh, gotta cancel school.
Yes.
People are talking about it for a week, and I'm like, I have no. It'll be the day before. I'm like, there's a snowstorm coming. I got no idea because I'm like focused on where I'm freaking going. I'm not letting the weatherman control like what I'm doing in my life. And so many like the world has completely changed just since we've been around. Now I sound like an old head.
I know.
I sound like an old head talking, but like it's just like when we were kids in kindergarten and first grade, like. They weren't looking, and maybe we just didn't hear about it, but I don't think they were looking at Weather Channel a week ahead of time, thinking about the snowstorm that's coming next Tuesday and how it's going to impact our life. Yep. And, and how many times is school canceled a day or 2 days ahead and then nothing happens? And I get it. It's a safety thing. And but at some point it's also a tipping point of being too soft in this world. And then at some point people get their teeth kicked in. It's because they were completely coddled and, everyone is giving them 8th place trophies and canceling school 3 days before it should have been canceled.
A very important aspect and tool to have in life is resiliency, right? And there's only one way to build resiliency, and that's by experiencing hardship. And you're kind of you're alluding to it, and my fear is that we're diverting ourselves away from the experience of adversity. Mm-hmm. Stress has become a bad thing, right?
Freaking stress is the best thing ever because it makes you stronger.
Yes.
And now it's like covered up with the word anxiety, and I get it. Like people have struggles and all this stuff, but like you got to take a deep breath, and like that's part of life, and that's what's gonna make you stronger. That's what's gonna make you stronger. I'm freaking jacked up right now. That's the only reason I cut you off. I'm sorry, but.
There you go. But it's just I think you have to try to, for some people, learn how to enjoy stress. And that's kind of, what I found helps me in those scenarios. Is, when I'm up at night, my mind's racing over whether it's this project or my wife or my daughter or anything in life. It's, how do I change the mindset towards that one thing that's bothering me at that point?
Yep.
Right? How do I turn that in the opposite direction?
Yep.
How do I recognize, this has me anxious, this has me stressed, but is it in my control? Is there an answer to it?
Yep.
Right? There's an answer, then I can handle it.
100%.
I just got to do it.
Yeah. So like that's a long way of me answering, what am I like passionate about? Why am I doing? And like, again, I always want to be someone that's closing the gap of my potential, not just in professional life, but everywhere. And the thing is like when you're doing that everywhere though too, like there are times where certain things are going to take a back seat for a while, but then you have to be able to wake yourself up too and realize, okay, that thing's been on the back burner now for a month or 2 months. I need to put this thing a little bit to the side to get this thing back up to where it needs to. But like, you're never going to be perfully balanced. I could care less what anyone says. There's no way as a successful person, I feel like you will kill yourself trying to be perfectly balanced.
And that's kind of where I was getting at when I started down the personal side question is, a lot of the successful people that I talk to, one of the lessons that they try to give me or that they would like to have changed is their work-life balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Family time.
Mm-hmm.
So how has your experience been with your drive and your mindset in that area? And any suggestions for somebody that thinks?
When I'm all in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like we're going through a transition of who's watching our 5-month-old right now, right? So we got someone that's coming to help us starting next week, right? So the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like, I've had to watch him on, Mondays, Tuesdays. I had to turn my schedule upside down, which is fine. I'm like, he's only going to be 4, 5, 6 months one time, right? So I'm like, I try not to judge myself too hard. If I had to cancel some of those meetings, I had to cancel and reschedule some of those meetings because this is a priority right now, right? So I think that's another thing. I just think people put too much weight on certain things that shouldn't have that much weight on them.
Yeah.
Or like,
did it take you time to learn that skill?
I think I've always just kind of been a person that it's kind of just like water that runs off my back. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't know. I've always kind of been like, look, I'm going to put in maximum effort and then it's going to be what it's going to be.
And when you put in,
sometimes you're going to let some people down, but because I overcommit. I mean, there'll be days I have 3 meetings booked at the same time because I'm going to say yes to figure it out. And what's going to happen is if each meeting is 30 minutes long, well, I'll be a part of this one for 2 minutes. I'll be the first one to go get my thing say what I need to say. Hey, anyone else have anything for me, or can I hop off? I hop off, I go to my next thing. Whereas so many other people out there would freak out and be like, oh, can't do it. Can't do it. Whereas I'm always like, how can I say yes to this?
So do you ever find yourself in a position that you say yes too much?
I think now, yes, I've had to say no more now. But I also think that's because I've kind of found what works and what's working and what I want in my life and what I don't want in my life. When someone's starting, like, I feel like they should say yes to everything.
So that's fascinating.
And not having time to do something is straight up an excuse.
Yes.
Because I've overcommitted so many times and it's worked out every time.
That's my number one issue right now is I say yes to everything. I put a lot of not obligations, but opportunities that I've said yes to, right, that take a lot of time and sacrifice. And that's kind of why I go into these questions with people like you who have a successful career, a successful, beautiful family, is I have the same thing. And one of the things that I struggle with is where do I need to have my priorities lie? Mm-hmm. When do I start saying no? Yep. On top of that, how do I start saying no? Because I don't have that. I'm not good at that skill right now, right? Yep. So if somebody asks me to be involved in something or my opinion on something or work on something, I always say yes, professionally, personally, everywhere. Yeah. And my wife, God bless her, I know that drives her crazy when I do that. And that's, something at some point in my life, I think I'm going to have to address and try to develop that skill a little bit better.
Well, I also think there's a lot of meetings that are, 30 minutes long that could be a lot shorter. So I think that's also why there's times where I'll triple book myself, knowing that, okay, someone just sent me an invite for 30 minutes. That's not going to take me 30 minutes to go through. And that starts at 10 a.m. And then someone else sent me another thing they say is going to take an hour to go through. And that starts at 10 a.m. And then someone else, we got another thing that takes 15 minutes. And that starts at 10 a.m. I'll just say yes to all of them. Cause I'm like, dude, this 15-minute one, like that's gonna be a 2-minute deal.
So you got 2 meetings outside right now?
Huh?
So you probably got 2 meetings standing outside the door right now?
We're Friday afternoon right now, so no, not right now. But I did earlier today. Earlier today, I had to send a text. We were wrapping something up. I had today at 11:30. I had a call at 11:30 that was scheduled for 11:30. I had a meeting that was supposed to start at 11:30, and then I had a noon that was supposed to start at noon. And so what happened was I just took that first phone call. I told them, hey, I'm going to be a couple minutes late. I took the first phone call, rolled in there 5 minutes late, which set me back for the next meeting a little bit. And then I had to return a call in between there too. But the thing is, I communicate too. I'm not just showing up late. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be 5 minutes late to this. I'm going to be 10 minutes late to this. So I don't know. I just try to also so I guess what I'm trying to go towards here is when I say yes, I don't have to have it eat into my time with my family all the time. Does it happen sometimes? Yeah, it absolutely happens sometimes. But instead, I'll just almost double book something and figure out in that window how long it's really going to take me. Especially I think part of it is too is when I have a team now, right? I got 50 employees and I got legal counsel and I got a lot of people. So part of it is too if something gets sent to me, it might take all of you guys a half hour to figure all this stuff out. But again, if I've double booked myself or triple booked myself, I'll again start the phone call and say, hey, I'm double or triple booked. What do you guys need from me right now? Or what do you need to give to me right now so that I can run with? Because I don't have time to send this full phone call. And so I think maybe that's part of it. And I leverage that a little bit. And that's where I know it's sometimes it's okay to double, triple book, whatever. But I just you gotta eliminate the I don't have time. I don't have time for my kid. What do you mean you don't have time for your kid? Your kid's a kid once, right? And you're the person that's supposed to be making them they're not gonna be a kid forever, and it's your job to make them so they're an outstanding adult, right? That's you don't want. What is the saying? You're not trying to raise good kids. You're trying to have kids and raise them into good adults or whatever it is, right? And then so you got to find time for it.
And I think you and I would agree the best part of life is raising our young child. Yeah. I mean, that's
and coaching soccer, the cool thing is sometimes I can control the schedule, actually, our games, right? So when it's in season, I can look ahead to my schedule and be wait, okay, this weekend, this Friday, Saturday, I'm busy. So we got to make sure that game's going to be on Sunday. Yeah. So a lot of people are asking me, well, how do you have the time to coach? I'm like, well, actually, because now I can kind of control the schedule a little bit more because I am the coach. But again, how can I not find the time to coach?
Yeah. You've become an excellent time manager.
I think I don't procrastinate, so I think I make more time.
If you're efficient, yes.
Yeah, I think I'm very
efficient with your time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because I don't even know if I manage time. I feel like I create time because I don't procrastinate. Yep. I don't say no, I don't have time for this. So there's so many people that think, oh, I don't have time to achieve my goal, or I don't have it's your goal. How do you not have time to achieve it? Right. So I make it a I also think that by not procrastinating, I get a lot more done. If someone's got this task to do and they're kind of hemming and hawing or procrastinating on it, or they just don't know what to do, they'll just let that thing sit on their list. I'll make a decision on it right now. If I'm wrong, I'll find out in 2 days, pivot.
Yep.
Whereas 2 days later, that other person, and maybe even 6 weeks later, that person hasn't even made an initial decision.
Yep.
So I think that is no doubt compressed time for me. And so some people are like, well, how have you done what you've done by the time you're 30? I almost forgot how old I was. By the time you're 35, and I'm like, because I compress time. I create and compress time by not procrastinating. So I can get like in it. I truly think that, you know, I get more done in a year, not only because I do work more hours, but I'm also making decisions 10 times faster. So now not only am I working 2x the hours that someone else is, so if someone else is capping at 40 or 45 and I'm working 80 to 90 to 100 out. I mean, before I was married and kids, it was 110 hours a week sometimes. But like if I'm 80 to 90 hours, you know, and I'm making 10x faster decisions, not only am I really got, you know, not really is every year like 2 years compared to someone else.
Double.
It's, you can 10x it. Like you can 10x it, literally 10x it, because I'm making decisions that much faster. So my 1 year, how have I done what I've done by 25? My 1 year is like someone else's 20 years.
Yeah. That's a good way to think about it.
So, and then that compounds over time.
Absolutely.
Right? Just like money compounds, like that all compounds.
So did you ever at any point in your career have a struggle balancing that time?
I think I do struggle balance. That's what I'm saying is I'm not looking for balance because I struggle balancing for time.
It seems like you found a really great way though to make sure that time is carved out for your family, right?
I just have the non-negotiables or the certain barriers where I'm like, and again, that's why like there's times where if someone says, look, this is going to take a half hour, I'm be like, well, I'm going to double, triple book this hour. So instead of pushing it out till past, you know, 6 p.m. or if I've got my daughter's got soccer practice the right time here at 5:30 p.m., like I've got to double book that thing at 4 and now just show up to part of it here and part of it there while they figure the rest out.
That's an interesting way to do it.
Right.
I never really considered that as an option.
So I don't really, and some people maybe don't always have that option.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to show is like an extreme way of that because everyone somehow,
just thinking outside of the box.
Yeah. Because everyone, and again, I'm not disrespecting someone else's time. I'm just, you know, I don't know. So again, I'm horrible at balancing it, right? And I mean, like when we go on trips, like there's some trips where, you know, I mean, we went to Nantucket this summer for 7 or 8 days or whatever. You know, I got up 3 of those mornings. I got up and worked from 5:30 till 10, right? But then by the time everyone else gets up and going, I'd already, you know, got my stuff done. Now I'm ready to go do whatever. And now I'm not, you know, I'm not really doing anything else then. You know, we go to Hawaii. When we go to Hawaii, the time change, I don't really, you know, I wake up no matter what, even if you try to get adjusted to that, like, then the first night I'm up at like 2 a.m. Well, I work from 2 a.m. till 10 a.m. So I got a full day's work in. Now the next night I sleep really good, right? And so I adjust my time. But those first 2 nights, usually I got like 2 days of work done in the middle of the night, right?
You feel accomplished
I just roll
and you can relax.
Yeah, and I just roll with it. So I'm horrible at balancing time. It's how can I create more time?
Yeah. That's a unique way to think about it.
I suck at balancing it.
Not how do I fit this in, but how do I make more time? Yeah.
So, and again, the procrastination thing of just getting up and getting it done, so now it's off your list, and it's
procrastination kills a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I like the way you phrase that. Of, you know, in my mind, it's not how much can I fit into the day, right? It's how can I create time?
Yeah, I mean, it's
a different way.
My wife was supposed to go get a massage today. I was 3 minutes late. She's like, "No, I'm gonna be late." I'm like, "Well, so it's not always perfect."
So here's how you create time: you drive faster, right?
right, yeah. So it's not always perfect, right?
Yeah.
And it's but again, we make it all. You make it all work, and you know.
Can you look back and say there's one move, either professionally or personally, that was your best decision?
Not really. It's just a culmination of stuff.
Okay.
You know, like I think back to when I started. Like I'm 22. Like again, I think it's just getting started.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just one thing. I just don't think it's one thing.
Goes back to the mindset.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I can't even, like, there's so much that I think the biggest thing for me was just getting started. That was the biggest thing. But then other than that, I don't think one thing, like, you know, it's like the football fan who's never actually played football and they blame the one drop pass on the entire game. Well, yeah, like the guys gotta make the catch. I get it, but there's also other things that happen in the game that you didn't even see, right? That ultimately shouldn't have boiled down to just that one.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of my mindset is like, I don't think it's hard to just boil down to one thing other than getting started and showing up.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping I look back at this and say,
yeah, man, when it's done, maybe we can do an on location podcast or something too,
fun.
like in July or something when you open it up. That'd be sweet. So, but yeah, because I think you'll learn a lot. You'll still learn a lot more, and I think the listeners here. I mean, hopefully, the local listeners will know a little bit more about your project and can go check out what's the name of it again? The shop.
So the shop lofts on
Shop
Facebook.
Lofts
We're going to continue to update that, weekly with the progress.
Yeah.
So we got a lot going on. Hopefully this week. So hope to add quite a bit of content to that.
Hopefully they can learn a little bit about this, and then people that are from not around Stoughton and Wisconsin, they can obviously learn from a lot of what we talked about there. I mean, how much parking, parking can. How long that can take to figure out on a project. And I mean, I've had it happen on my stuff where it's like, a lender or someone is counting the parking space. Oh, you're 3 parking spaces short.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus, like,
it's always something.
It comes up.
Yep.
It comes up.
Yep.
So, awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. Justin, thanks for coming on. It's been awesome. And, keep crushing it. You'll do great on the project.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you, learn a little more from you, and had a lot of fun today.
You bet. See ya. Thank you guys.